Hey everybody, this is Philip J. Fry from Futurama, Pizza Delivery Boy. And right now you're listening to This Week in Geek. And you can find it on the web at geek.net. It's awesome. It's cool.
Who disrupts my coronation? Everyone has been destroyed because of this freak. I won't allow it! These babies just saved this lame fest party!
Guys, what's going on? You are listening to ThisWeekInGeek.net. I'm your host, Mike the Birdman, but I'm not alone on this, entombed in ice. If you happen to live in southern Ontario today, I'm joined from the grand city of Kitchener.
Alex, the producer here.
Yeah, it has been a interesting day. My wife is supposed to go in to teach today, but it turns out the entire school board is shut down due to a massive ice storm. So she's teaching online today, which is a very interesting process to watch and observe, seeing how she's teaching French today. So that's an interesting sign. And, if you don't have to venture out on icy death roads, good. So that's been a thing. So I normally start off each show by talking about what I've done over the past week. That's sort of our deal here. Very, very, very quickly, I beat 2 games this week. I beat Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which I got on launch, and I finally beat on Sunday. And then I finally got around to beating, because it was the first game I bought when I got my PlayStation. I beat Spider-Man Miles Morales, and I almost have every single trophy in the game. That was a fantastic experience. My God, I wanted another 20 hours in that world.
Welcome to this generation.
Yeah, man, that game looks great. And just some of the photos I was able to take, like I said, photo modes in games, please make them a standard. I was so happy with that, and a surprisingly good story. So really looking forward to Spider-Man 2 whenever that comes out on PlayStation 5. And yeah, because there's no way that'll be on last gen.
I suspect that's the big game for next winter.
Yeah, so that'll be pretty cool. And then I want to talk about something kind of good that happened to me last night. So last night I was browsing Facebook. I'm just getting ready to go to bed. I think I've just put down Halo Infinite for the night. And I get a message from an old friend in high school. And this person's name is Sandy, and he started talking about how we knew each other way back when, how I used to hang with this really tough kid named Tim, and he said this guy, Tim, was the toughest guy he ever met, and I was the biggest person he'd ever met. And he says, I don't mean that to be kind of negative, but seeing you guys made me want you as friends because I saw how friendly you were and how just accepting you were of whatever. And I want you to know that you really helped me come out of my shell. You've really inspired me. And then he goes on to tell me some other nice things. But this, I really want to read in particular because I've never quite thought of it like this. And this isn't meant to sound conceited, but this really struck a chord with me last night. And he says, you're one of the most successful people I went to high school with, regardless of quote unquote income. You have probably reached and inspired more people than anyone in our graduating class. Think about that. And I wrote back, I never even thought of it like that. And then, I don't know, it kind of made me realize some of the adventures I've had. And I know we've had people come out of my high school, not in my class. I know one person went on to work at Entertainment Tonight Canada, Cheryl Hickey. I don't know if she's there anymore, but she was one of the hosts there for many, many, many years. And yeah, I don't know. And this person, Sandy, went on to say, I see you doing your advocacy work, the fact that you talk about so many different issues. You inspire by making people think. And there's a lot of people silently and very vocally cheering you on. Keep doing what you're doing. And I wouldn't say I've had a depressive episode this week, but coming off the heels of, to kind of relate this as something geeky, Miles Morales playing as Spider-Man in that game and taking on responsibility, believing in oneself, becoming your own hero, so to speak, for whoever needs you. That kind of hit a little bit differently this week. And I never quite thought of myself like, I mean, I get fan mail occasionally that says I'm doing a good job in helping people and inspiring them. But I think I'd forgotten that for a long time. I'm not needing that to say I need to stroke my own ego. But I don't know. It hit a little bit differently because of this week, what I've been experiencing and whatnot. So thank you, Sandy. That was certainly welcome to hear. And I definitely appreciate it. And definitely a lesson I'm going to be carrying forward through the rest of my time. And I guess before I switch off to you, Alex, to see what you've been up to, if I've inspired you, thank you. Thank you exceptionally very, very much. And all I ask in return is if you can do something good for someone, even if it's something small, just do it anyway. Because you don't have to save the entire planet to save someone's world. And maybe you can make a small difference in someone's life by doing them something kind. So now that I have that out of my system, because that was a little too real last night at like 2:30 in the morning. What have you been up to, Alice? Because I feel like you've been like underwater this week. I haven't heard from you like at all.
Well, you always make me follow up these ones, and I'm like, God damn it. Well, the last couple months have been pretty hectic here as far as just things going on, as you know. So I needed some time to decompress, and I had a bunch of stuff to review. Of I was a little behind on some games, but then I went, you know what? I'm taking a break from all my review items, and I'm going to play some stuff for myself. Mostly because when I went back and played the Cyberpunk on PS5, getting to experience the whole story at once without it crashing a million times on me, so I could have one consistent flow, and doing the endings and really sitting there and thinking about them. That game hit me pretty hard with some of the existential stuff in it, and I was like, okay, I need to unwind. And I started playing the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters just for myself, and in the course of about 5 days, I beat Final Fantasy 1 through 4 complete playthroughs, and I found that was a great way for my brain to focus and decompress on things. Pretty good. Having a good time with it. Starting Final Fantasy 5 probably today later on, and I went and saw Batman, which I was happy with. Which, I mean, we'll probably have a talk on it eventually once more people see it. I feel like it's not worth talking and spoiling right now, because
maybe we'll wait till the home video release.
Yeah, because it, along with Spider-Man, are probably the two films that most people that are going to go to theaters, you know, as this pandemic is waning out, are going to see. I happened to go second day, or I guess the first opening day, but it wasn't like the Thursday, you know, matinees. It wasn't that. It was the Friday first showing. And we had about 20 people in there, but I'm hearing across the board it was pretty much sold out in the States, almost entirely.
When I saw it, we had probably about 40, 50 people. We saw it on Thursday opening night at the first showing. And I was surprised how few people were there.
Yeah,
locally.
I think in Canada, like, it's the first week where the restrictions were up in Ontario, but you'd figure there'd be more. But I think people are way more hesitant in Canada to go back than they are in the States. Like, apparently it was all sold out across the board almost the whole weekend down there. And it's not to say that we as Canadians aren't interested. I just get the feeling that we're more trepidatious when it comes to our outings, because the weather wasn't bad. It was actually okay when I went. But yeah, like, I'm not going to talk about that here. That's more of a talk for later. I feel like Spider-Man and Batman are the two movies that are jumpstarting the movie going economy again. Outside of that, I spent about 4 or 5 days at my mom's. She just turned 65 and then retired within the same day, obviously. So it was sort of a low key celebration there. I made her a birthday card, but I made it giant on Bristol board because she's old and has to be able to read it. That was what I said, and that was precipitated almost right after that. I had to run away as fast as I could because she was going to come after me with a wooden spoon. Because the card said happy retirement and birthday, mama, and I painted on it with paint, made the card, and then on the inside it says, hope you can read this with your old people eyes. and then all I heard was, that's it, and I'm like, oh shit, gotta get up and move. So for her, and then I got a bag full of dollar store chocolates and gummies for her because, like, you're retired, put your feet up and watch TV. I also got her a baseball cap, one of those ones that says it's retired in 2022, now it's your problem on it, and then a pair of socks that on the bottom, like on the soles of the feet, says finally retired, because she didn't want anything. She didn't want, like, I don't want you to buy me anything. All I'm going to do is take her to the movies. She wants to go see, I think it's next week it comes out, the Jason Statham, Josh Hartnett movie of Operation something or other. It looks like Ocean's 11 type thing.
There was an ad I saw for a movie called Bullet Train that looked kind of fun, actually.
Yeah, she wants to see that too because, like, she's not a big superhero person, but she loved Iron Man, like just the first 2 Iron Man movies, and she loves Deadpool, and it's the same director as Deadpool. So that Bullet Train.
I think he did Deadpool 2. Yeah, he did Deadpool 2.
So she wants to see that, so we'll see that too. But yeah, I think it's Operation Ruse, I think is it's a Guy Ritchie movie. So she wants to see that next week, and so part of it is I'm taking her, and surprise, I'm going to use probably some of my Cineplex free tickets or whatever to go see it, or a gift card. So it's her birthday ain't going to cost me nothing, because she's like, you better not spend any money. I'm like, okay, fine.
Joke's on you, I'm poor, I can't.
Joke's on you, I bought you $20 worth of chocolate, I bought you a $20 baseball cap, $5 pair of socks, and she wouldn't even let me buy dinner. She goes, we're having dinner that I already made. I'm like, what is it? She's like, pot roast. And I'm like, that's what you want. We can pretend I made it for you. Like, that's the kind of parent that you want, is the one that not only doesn't want a gift, but if you try to give them a gift, will get angry with you.
Yeah, actually, me and Blair are planning on sending your mom a pizza, and we're going to have them write happy retirement on the box and just not say who it's from.
Okay.
See what she'll do then.
I just have to make sure she's home.
Yep, just make sure she's home some night. Me and Blair will coordinate it, and we will do our best to send Mama Rishi off into the land of endless nights of bingo halls and reruns of the Patty Duke Show.
There is a bingo hall in the plaza around the corner. And she always made fun of it. Now I'm like, Mom, I go, all right,
those
so
are
when are
your
you
people
gonna,
now?
I said, when are you going to the bingo hall? She's like, it's actually been calling to me. I'm like, what? She's like, I've been thinking about it. I'm like, oh no, you turn 65 and immediately you have old people brain, so you want to go to bingo? And she goes, kind of. I miss going to the casinos, and that's the closest. I'm like, that's not the closest thing to a casino. That's an old person bingo hall.
Have I ever told you my bingo story?
No.
Okay, so I was 14 or 15, and I went with my mom, or my grandmother at the time, to bingo one night, and it was in our local small town where I grew up, and my mom is having shit luck all night. Like, I'm talking like hosed out, like she got hosed card after card after card, and I'm playing along like, cool, she gave me $20, got to make it last the night. Not an easy feat. So I'm playing with it, and I get a bingo. I'm like, bingo! And she's like, what the fuck? And it turns out I won like $300 or $400. Like, you're splitting that with me. Like, you told me I was on my own, fuckface.
See, if I said that to my mom, that's a good way to get a slap. I don't call my mom fuckface. What the fuck is wrong with you?
You wonder why I had so many problems.
I had to run away from the wooden spoon for making fun of her eyesight. And I didn't even call her. If I called her fuckface, this would no longer be This Week in Geek with Alex. Alex would be gone. I'd be sipping through a straw for 6 months.
She was a tough old lady, but I'm like, you weigh 100 pounds soaking wet. I was 300 pounds at that time. Like, I'm built like the Terminator. What are you gonna do?
My mom's a PSW. She has like the Vulcan nerve pinch. If she wanted to take me out, I could say something to her. She'd sneak up from behind, pinch a nerve, and I'd just be bleh. And I'd be out because they have that crazy like stop people with dementia strength, right? So
yeah. Oh my god.
But yes, indeed, bingo halls and all that stuff.
So good times.
What I told her, I'm like, next thing you know, you're going to be playing Lions TV bingo again. And she goes, oh, I forgot that existed. I should go get some cards. I'm like, no, you should not get some more cards. Although the Lions Club does do a lot of things for the region, so maybe she should. But yes, I'm like you should see her face light up. I'm like, do you want me to get you some bingo dabbers for Mother's Day? Yeah, sure. And I'm like, stop! I was making a joke.
Bingo dabber bouquet.
Bingo dabber bouquet. Yeah,
Make it happen.
So that's basically been me for this week. I'm rested. It's icy out, so I'm not going anywhere. I'm hibernating until spring. That's pretty much it.
Awesome. All right, guys. So we have a fantastic show for you lined up here on This Week in Geek. We have some exciting news from a television revival that finally has done the right thing. We're also going to talk about some of the most unusual things, including why you shouldn't steal trucks parked in residential neighborhoods. You never know what you're going to find. But we also have some reviews of some fantastic releases from some of our friends. We're going to be taking a look at Dynasty Warriors 9 Empires from Koei Tecmo. We're also going to be taking a look at the latest entry into the Gran Turismo series on the PlayStation 5 with Gran Turismo 7. And finally, from Warner Brothers Home Entertainment, we are going to be taking a look at The Matrix Resurrections. So I'm going to say we're going to take the choice I'm going to present to you as Morpheus once did. I'm going to offer you the blue pill and the red pill. And with that, we are going to take a deep dive into The Matrix Resurrections from Warner Brothers Home Entertainment.
We can't see it, but we're all trapped inside these strange repeating loops.
Billions of people just living out their lives, oblivious.
But this is the moment for you to show us what is real. I remember this.
Hey guys, this is Mike the Birdman here, and I'm here to talk about one of the latest releases from Warner Brothers Home Entertainment. I'm talking about the 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray and digital code for The Matrix Resurrections. This is a movie I wish I'd really seen in theaters. I've seen every single Matrix movie opening night since the now quadrilogy has been in existence. Matrix Resurrections is the one I didn't see gesturing to the world on fire, which is why I didn't get a chance to go. So seeing this on my own 4K home setup with HDR was a phenomenal experience. There are some really cool moments in this, and one of the things that I really want to draw attention to is the picture qualities. Now, I'm watching this through my Xbox Series X on a 65-inch LED HDR Roku TV, and in the opening minutes of the movie, the agents are in the modal, which is the program within a program in this. Trust me, the movie makes it make sense. I never noticed the texture on the agent's suits. That is how good the picture is. There's also another moment where Neo is fighting new Agent Smith, and new Agent Smith looks at himself in a mirror that's all been shattered and splintered. And I never noticed in the reflection you see Hugo Weaving with the sunglasses and everything. He looks like he did just in Matrix Reloaded. And I'm like, holy shit, I never noticed that before. It's incredible. I also watched a few other sequences specifically to see how they would visually pop. when you first get to the cooperation city of Io, I guess I would call it, where it's the machines and people living together. And then finally the end sequence, and I won't say too much more than that, looks phenomenal, sounds even better. If you can watch this in Dolby Atmos or 5.1 at the minimum, you're in for a treat. Now, the movie itself, it's an interesting spiritual reboot to the franchise, but everything that has happened previously through Matrix, Reloaded, and Revolutions has still happened. It's just in Resurrection, 60 years have passed, and how that all comes together, I'm not really going to spoil, but I was surprisingly intrigued with how they dealt with legacy characters, most notably how they dealt with Morpheus and how they dealt with Agent Smith. I was very pleased to see how well things were handled. I think it was Lana Wachowski wrote. It was Lana or Lily. I always get those two confused because of the similar names, but I was really impressed with this movie. I actually really enjoy this. I might say this is probably one of my new favorite Matrix movies in the entire franchise, because it does take some pretty daring decisions with how it tells its narrative. It even updates how agents work. There's something called swarm mode now and bots, which is really cool. They talk about this alliteration of the Matrix, what happened to the last Matrix, stuff like that. There's some really cool stuff going on here, and there's some really cool callbacks if you watch how things kind of play out from the previous movies. And I know I just did a podcast on this like a couple of months ago with David Double D Dennis, so you should check out that podcast. It's called Hold Up, and I think it's here on the channel. But one thing the Matrix movies are almost always known for is their discs when it comes to special features. This one is certainly no different. There's more of an amusing one where the actors try and explain the Matrix movies in succession to see what they remember. There's one where they talk about going back. There's a half-hour featurette focusing specifically on how they created things, from the music to the special effects to the fight choreography to bringing back Keanu and Carrie-Anne Moss, stuff like that. There's also another one, and it's called Matrix Reactions, and it's like an extended making of would be the best way to describe it, and it's close to almost an hour long if I remember right. But there's also ones where they talk about, like, I still know Kung Fu. I mean, Keanu Reeves is frigging John Wick, so he can probably do a lot of his own stunts. So it's really incredible to see how much is packed here. There's a lot of special features, a lot of value in here. I'm really hoping Warner Brothers does another release of the Matrix movies, puts them in an updated 4K format, much like this. I think there was a Matrix box set that came out a couple of years ago. I'm pretty sure I own it. I'm not sure whether it's Blu-ray or 4K. It's Blu-ray for sure. 4K I'm not 100% sure of, but Resurrections looks phenomenal. If you have the right home theater setup, you're in for a treat. You really are. If you're a Matrix junkie, you're also in for a treat for all the wealth of special features you're going to get and just the amazing amount of info dump that you get. And if you come to this movie with an open mind, I think you're going to have a really good time. And if they choose to end the Matrix franchise here and continue it on in other media where we're done with the story of Trinity and Neo, perfectly okay with that. I would be very curious to see where the story could go. But if this is where the Wachowskis want to end it, I'm fine with it too. So you should be definitely checking out the Matrix Resurrections from Warner Brothers Home Entertainment on 4K Ultra HD, Blu-ray, and digital code. Operator, it's time to jack in.
It's so easy to forget how much noise the Matrix pumps into your head. Something else makes the same kind of noise. War.
The Prime Minister of Sweden visited Washington today, and my tiny little nipples went to France.
Gossip, rumors, panic in the streets. We're lucky.
This Week in Geek News.
And so we have returned from the Machine Cities. We are back, jacked into the Matrix. And we are going to talk about the strange and exciting news that typically happens around the world around this time each and every week for the last 15 or so years. This is This Week in Geek's Nerd News. Okay, so our first story comes from CBR.com. Futurama and John DiMaggio reach deal. Bender voice actor joins revival. John DiMaggio officially rejoins the cast of Futurama as the voice of Bender, rounding out the cast for the Hulu revival of the animated series. John DiMaggio has officially joined the cast of the Futurama revival. According to The Hollywood Reporter, DiMaggio will return as the voice of Bender, among other characters, for Hulu's revival of the long-running animated series. When Futurama's return was first announced, DiMaggio's role in the series had not yet been confirmed. He joined original castmates Billy West, Katie Siegel, Tress MacNeille, Maurice LaMarche, Lauren Tom, Phil Lamar, and David Herman. "I'm back, baby," DiMaggio said in a statement. "So damn grateful for the love and support of fans and colleagues alike during this whole time, especially my wife, Kate, and I cannot wait to get back to work with my Futurama family. Hashtag Bendergate is officially over." So to put it in the back shelf behind Xmas decorations, or maybe in the kitchen drawer with all the other crap you put in there, like old unusable crazy glue, put it back in the jar you say farts in. Whatever floats your boat. I don't care. You get the picture. I'm back, baby. Bite my shiny metal ass. Hulu's revival series was announced on February 9th, with the sci-fi comedy series expected to return for a 20-episode run helmed by original series creator Matt Groening and showrunner David X. Cohen. At the time of the announcement, most of the original cast was set to return, though DiMaggio was still finalizing his deal to return as the voice of the wisecracking robot Bender. DiMaggio's absence from the returning cast immediately sparked outrage from fans, causing the hashtag John DiMaggio is Bender to trend on social media. DiMaggio's initial decision not to return to Futurama was due to a pay dispute. In a previously released statement, the voice actor explained that he not only believed that he deserved higher pay for his work, but so did the entire cast. However, the deal has officially been closed, and DiMaggio will reprise his role as Bender for the revival. From the moment John DiMaggio auditioned last century, we knew we had our Bender.
I love that last century. They're playing into the whole, millennial thing that they do with the show, right?
Yeah. Groening said in a statement, "So congrats to everyone at Futurama. We're all back, baby." Canceled by Fox in 2003, Futurama was picked up again by Comedy Central in 2010, where it aired for an additional 2 seasons. John DiMaggio has been may be a great robot, but he's also a great human being, Cohen added. "Not many people or machines can say that. For the 4th time, it's a once-in-a-lifetime thrill to be back with the entire original cast and the phenomenal animators of Rough Draft Studios." Hulu's revival is expected to premiere in 2023 with a 20-episode order. There was no way they could have got around not having him. That would have torpedoed the entire project.
Well, it would be like him specifically, but also Billy West, because Billy West does, and DiMaggio and Billy West do the vast majority of the extra character voices too. Like Maurice LaMarche, doesn't he do a couple voices, I think, as well?
I think he's Zoidberg, and I know Phil Lamar is Hermes.
Phil Lamar is Hermes. The Billy West is the professor as well.
He's Farnsworth and Fry. Yeah.
But like all the random characters, like the bum what talks like this all the times, that's DiMaggio. I think it's either him or Billy West that does Scruffy, the janitor. And
I think that's a Billy West character.
And then isn't it Tress does all the women?
Except for Leela, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. All the supporting women.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure.
And Amy is a different character.
Futurama is a show that didn't really catch me, but I've seen a few episodes that have really taken me by surprise.
That was my, like, when I started watching that, I stopped Simpsons almost entirely because of how well it was written. All the good writers from The Simpsons moved over.
It's weird because I can recall almost as many Futurama memes as I can Simpsons memes, despite me having considerably less exposure.
There's probably more Futurama memes in general.
Because you've got the take my money now, death by snoo,
which by the way, that episode, the last thing that B. Arthur ever recorded.
Oh, that's funny.
She's Femputor. and she was like 80 something when she did it, and she's like, "After lengthy femputations, I have determined." Have you seen the Snoo episode or just heard the two?
I've seen it, but it's been like 20 years.
It's Death by Snoo Snoo and Fry and Captain high five each other. Yeah, and then they said, how'd they die? Crushed pelvises, and it's all these like skeletons with missing like their entire pelvis bones are just dust. And it's just, and the sounds like for a kids show or family show, just the sound of them having sex, screaming yeah, and they're like, no, wait, I need time to, oh god. And it just goes on and on, and there's a line like where they're like basically saying the spirit is willing but the body is like clammy. And when he starts, Fry screams, "No, can't we just cuddle?" As she drags him back in for Snoo Snoo, and Captain Zap goes, as he's being dragged in because he's so tired. Like it's. I know I'm not doing it justice. I'll have to find that clip and send it to you because
that's the reason why I remembered it, because you came over sometime before COVID times. I was talking about this. I'm like, what the hell is Snoo Snoo? And you're like, oh, okay. Dude, I got to show you.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, I remember that now.
Yeah.
Although
there's more.
Sorry,
as the show went on, after its 4-season run, its initial 4 seasons were funny, and they actually hold up better than most Simpsons seasons post 95. When it came back as the movies, and then that got eventually cut up into the new seasons, and then the final 2 or 3 years that it was on, it's basically a non-vulgar Rick and Morty, almost identical in the feel and the way the jokes are.
What series do you think has sharper writing?
It's a tie.
Wow. All right. I may have to give it a whirl again.
They're slightly different.
Now, what service currently has it?
Rick and Morty can't make you cry.
True. They can make you sad, but not make you cry.
Watch the episode about Fry's dog.
Yeah, that's one of the episodes I've definitely went out of my way to see.
The dog
and the original ending.
The dog died because he wouldn't leave. We're waiting for him to come back.
Yeah, I saw that episode when it originally aired, and I saw the final episode because I pirated it when I was like a kid.
Oh, the one, yeah, with where Fry and Leela finally get to live out their lives together. But then they have to basically erase time. Like they have to erase that timeline to fix their timeline. But they're okay with it because they did, even if they won't remember it, they got to spend their life together.
Yeah. So I was like, that's a really good way to end something. And I don't know, some of these revivals will work better than others because it's Futurama. I don't have much fear that it'll suck.
Well, they're also bringing back some of the writers.
Yeah, so that's why it's going to be.
This isn't just like, hey, it's Futurama, here's our Bible, go forward. It's, hey, it's Futurama, here's some of the key writers.
Yeah. And you know what? Looking at some of these revival series and how voice actors are treated, these actors absolutely deserve higher pay. They deserve more security in their roles. I mean, if you can pay assholes from Friends or whatever millions of dollars per episode, there is no reason why voice actors cannot be getting a decent percentage of that, if not comparable. And I know someone's out there saying, you can't do that. No, voice acting is tough. We have, in our circle of friends, we have voice actors. We've got Kyle Hebert, who does so much anime. We have Mark Meir, who does so many video games, and other people in our sphere of friends. They deserve every penny they get. And you can't do a show as iconic as Futurama without the proper cast. It's like doing Dragon Ball without fucking Goku. It wouldn't work. You need Schemmel. You can't get Ian Corlett from the Ocean dub because no one will accept that now. Like, of the things
I would have.
Although,
but it's just, it depends who was your first, right?
Yeah, mine was Ian Corlett, and I didn't like Sean at first, but then the series grew on me, And I also can't picture anybody but Kyle Bear as Teen Gohan or like Ox King anymore.
You know,
I can't hear it.
It would be like you know how we're getting the new Transformers movie that's going to be Beast Wars.
Yeah.
You know how weird it's going to be not to
Without
hear
Gary
Scott,
Chalk.
well, or Scott McNeil
as Rat Trap, yeah, or David K
or
as
Dinobot and all that. Like it's
yeah.
going to be that Vancouver crew that worked on all the mainframe stuff. It's going to be, and also some of the early Dragon Ball and Saban stuff. It's going to be very, very hard because I'm being 6 years younger than you. It's even more ingrained in me that like these were my Saturday morning shows when I was like 8 years old.
Yeah.
So while you were in high school, like these were those to me are like you watching the original Turtles or watching He-Man and all these things. But like I came into it like that's the quality of programming and voice acting that I was used to. So I was that kid that watched the same episodes like 50 times because they would repeat them endlessly on YTV. So I can't watch something new where they replace the voice and go, and like it takes me completely out of it. So it's going to be interesting, and that's why these actors, like, this wasn't a greedy thing that they did. This wasn't a, you know, imagine like, oh, he's holding him up for more money. You know what? He fucking deserves more money. He's been doing the role for 23 years, and then I'm willing to bet that they're going to say we offered you a fair rate. No, I'm willing to bet that what they offered was lower, and some of the other actors are maybe more willing to take it because I'm not saying, you know, Billy West, those guys, who knows what their contracts are. They could have been different. I'm willing to bet that it wasn't like his was substantially lower than theirs. It's that most of them were just willing to take it because they just think that's what they deserve or that's what they're going to get. Katie Seagal is probably paid, even though she's only voicing one character, she's probably paid more than the others because she's actively on the Connors. She's actively on regular TV. So like she has never, and she's the only one of all the actors outside of Phil Lamar, but Phil Lamar mostly does voices now, and he'll make an appearance here and there. But Katie Seagal is an on-screen actor, and she probably has her Screen Actors Guild card. Certain things require that she gets paid more. And DiMaggio is probably looking at this like, hey, if you're bringing us back, yeah, we haven't been on consistently 35 years like The Simpsons, but you should be fucking paying us Simpsons money at this point.
Yeah, like 100%.
And the Simpsons people, like, they're getting $1 million an episode, even though the show does not get the viewers they used to get. It's the insane syndication rights, and for being on that long renegotiating. Now, I do not believe DiMaggio's like, give me, give
Dan
me
Canzanella money.
Yeah, give me Bart Simpson money. I don't think he said that. I think he said, hey, we didn't ask you to do this. You decided that this is your best bet to get viewership on this channel because of how popular we are. We deserve more than what you're giving. And I don't think he would have done it if they had offered. Maybe if they offered a little more, he wouldn't have done it. He probably looked at it and went, you should be paying me more than my market rate for this because this is an important show.
My guess is he probably made more doing Gears of War than he did on some of the Futurama stuff. He's worth it.
Or it's I'm wondering if they were trying to give him less because their argument was it's on a streaming network and no longer on cable.
Well, yeah, because I remember a couple of years ago, and I think we actually covered this story where we were talking about safety and other things and how people are paid on streaming network services shows. Like there's less oversight. There's less protection for you if you work on a streaming show, even on Disney Plus. I had friends who worked on some fairly popular series. I'm not going to out them, but they were like, wow, this sucks. And then when all the industry stuff came out last year, and then when we had the Alec Baldwin gun shooting thing, there's so many things on sets and streaming stuff where maybe corners get cut. And I imagine in the world of animation streaming stuff, I mean, no one expected the success of, say, Voltron, for example. That went over tremendously well. And when you look at a series like Futurama, that is a cultural impact. People will automatically go to Voltron's a gamble. Futurama, that's a guaranteed home run if it's done right. So DiMaggio probably is like, you know what? I know which way the wind's blowing. I'm worth this. And I completely agree with him asking for his salary and the cast salary to be increased if that was indeed the case. Like, it's totally justified.
Yeah, and I'm willing to bet. Now, we won't ever know all the details. I have a feeling he put in a favored nations clause, or that's what he was looking for. And if you don't know what that is, in actors and sometimes in other industries too, what it would mean is that everybody gets paid the same or more. So what that means is he finds out he's getting paid less than everybody else, and in his new contract negotiation, he's like, I want a favored nations thing, meaning that I get paid the same as everybody else, or if we bring in somebody else that gets paid more than us, all of our pay gets bumped equally to that pay. I don't know if that's what he would have necessarily got, but it's a lot of times what actors want that way. And it does is it also incentivizes them to be like, hey, we're going to get this new hip young celebrity to be a new character on this show. We're going to pay them twice as much as everybody else to get them in. It means that either they won't do that or they have to really want to do that, because that would also mean that every other actor has to get paid the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way to help boost their pay, but also make it so that they're not just going to go like, because how pissed would you be if you've been doing these voices for 23 years off and on, and when they call you in, they're like, hey, we're doing a new show, and then let's say that after a couple episodes they're like, hey, we're now getting Zac Efron to be a character on this and we're going to pay him $1 million an episode.
Yeah, I would be not happy.
Like, and that's not happening here. I'm just saying that's an example. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I can see how these voice actors would be like, they're thinking, hey, if we're going to do this, and there's a possibility of us, this is going to go two ways. One, it's not going to garner enough viewership and they're going to cancel it. So I want to get paid the maximum amount of money I can for this batch of 20 or whatever episodes they're going to renew us for. Or two, they're going to make this a staple of our streaming network, and we might get 65 episode orders for syndication purposes.
My guess is they're going to see how this season does. My guess is it'll be a smashing success, and they'll get picked up for another 2 or 3.
They're going to order 20 episodes, because there is no such thing as the 22 episode seasons anymore, especially on streaming. They're going to order 20 because it's roughly the same production length as like The Simpsons, and they're going to go, we're going to split it in 2 parts. They're going to give you 2 seasons out of that. Or they're going to order 16 episodes, do 8 and 8, sort of like how like South Park's been doing it for years.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's successful, then they might do a crazy pickup order. Like, because if you remember, I forget who was it? I think
Didn't
it was
Rick and Morty get picked up for some insane amount of episodes.
70 episodes over 7 years.
Yeah.
And we've only seen 10 of those in the last 2 years. So it's we've got plenty to go. Do you remember when FX was offering the crazy syndication deal, partially because of, or is it TBS? It was TBS, I think. TBS did that for now it's personal opinion, the terrible shows that Tyler Perry makes. But do you remember? It's a similar model there as what they did with Anger Management with Crazy Man.
Yeah.
They gave him a 10 episode first season, and contingent on the success of that, they ordered 90 more episodes to bring it to 100. And that was, and what they did, remember when they did that after the first season, they aired them 3 days a week. It was like 3 or 4 days a week. And each episode flowed into the next, like the Tyler Perry ones, where they're like a soap opera comedy, because it's the only way you can film that many episodes in a row, is to just make them like terrible soap operas. Now it's different with a cartoon, but they may do this where they're like, hey, we've already got enough episodes of the regular show for syndication, but when we want to sell syndication packages to the world, yes, we're going to be on streaming networks, but we're also looking to be on as many cable platforms as possible outside of the streaming platforms, because that's where they're going to make their advertiser money. They might go, hey, a package order is 65 episodes. So we might get 10 episodes this season, and then they go, hey, we're ordering 65. So that's the kind of thing that they're hoping for in this. That's what they want to get.
Yeah, and I ultimately think they will get it. So moving on to our next story, and tangentially related to John DiMaggio. This story comes courtesy of comicbook.com. Gears of War producer provides an update on the new movie. Let me see. One of the producers behind the long-awaited movie adaptation of Gears of War has provided a new update on the project status. For the better part of 15 years, a film version of Gears of War has been in development in some capacity, although work on the movie has never gotten far enough along to actually attach a big-name actor to the project. It sounds like something we could hear more about the film's current status before too long. In a new conversation with The Digital Fix, Dylan Clark, who is one of the producers on the Gears of War movie, was asked if he could share anything about development. Although Clark, who was busy promoting The Batman, declined to say anything about Gears of War, he did express that news of some sort could be emerging before long. I'm glad you're interested in it, Clark said. It's something that's been a passion of mine for a very long time. I think very soon there will be an announcement. Over the past few years, perhaps the most notable headline that have been involved in the Gears of War movie have been centered around actor and former wrestler Dave Bautista. For a long period, Bautista had been voicing that he wants to play a Gears of War protagonist, Marcus Phoenix, in a potential movie based on the video game. In fact, Gear 5's developer, The Coalition, ended up putting Bautista within the latest Gears game, in part because of his ongoing campaign to play Phoenix. Whether or not Bautista will actually be involved with the Gears of War movie, if it does see the light of day, remains to be seen, but he's certainly one name that many fans would love to see attached to the film. And then it just asks if you're excited. I'm honestly surprised it hasn't happened yet, and I think a lot of this is going to depend on how well Halo does in just a couple of weeks. Because Halo's the biggest name Microsoft franchise that's going to be put into live action. And
here's a question:
that's money on the screen.
Does anybody really care about getting
anything other
than Gears of War as a video game?
And
this is going to sound weird, but does anybody really care at all? Like, is it a property that evokes I need other media?
I think with Gears of War, whoops, sorry, my microphone fell there. I look at it in one of two ways, because I'm a big time Gears fan too. The competitive community is still there, but in terms of other media, I think they should have did what Halo did and did experimentations with, like when we talked about this on the Topic show last month, we discussed Halo Reach, Halo the Fall of Reach, Halo Legends, and then Forward Unto Dawn. 3 media projects set in that universe. Gears of War should have been doing that immediately. There should have been a 2 or 3 episode mini series with the budget of Forward Until Dawn, and do it like Band of Brothers. And I know I've suggested that for Halo ODST.
I don't think it translates. It's the over the top yo bro. That is so 15 years ago.
I think you could do it right depending on how you centered it within the Gears lore. If you told the story of Emergence Day, which is a pretty big event in the Gears of War universe, and you don't involve Marcus Phoenix and Dom, or you have them as side... If you involved one of the Carmine brothers, because they always die in like every game in that series, except for like one, I think, you could get a series going out of that.
But doesn't it, like it looks and feels like everything else, and also the color scheme, it would be so bland.
That's why I'm saying Emergence Day, when the world looks normal.
But again, I don't know how many people would actually pay to go see it.
I don't know. If you told me tomorrow there's going to be a new trailer for Gears of War, and it starts out with Dave Bautista's voiceover, and you just see the ruined cities of Sarah. You see, what the fuck? I can't even remember what they're called now. Grubs.
I just get very worried that it's going to be very bland.
If you ultimately you want to sell that movie, you have Dave Bautista in full COG uniform, and the final shot of the trailer is him firing up his Lancer with the chainsaw bayonet, and you hear the sound of it cutting through something, and you hear him use one of the iconic lines from the games. you would have a summer blockbuster on your hand if it was handled by proper studio with the right amount of money. You cannot cheap out on Gears.
It can't be a sepia toned, garbage looking, bland picture. Like, I get flashes of the Doom movie or Ghosts of Mars, or like at that point, if you're going to make a bland, why don't you just do Resistance Fall of Man if you're going to make something like that, which I feel people have forgotten. But the only way I could see this working is, surprisingly enough, Microsoft being involved, but it would blow people's minds if Columbia and Sony Pictures worked on it. And the reason I say that is they got a I think it's a first look production deal with Vin Diesel's company. Imagine Vin Diesel playing one of the characters with him.
Vin Diesel, I'm trying to think who he would suit. He wouldn't be Marcus. I wouldn't want that personally. He doesn't have to look for Dom. Not Baird. I see. You know who I see as Baird, but he'd have to bulk up. Someone like John Hamm. Like, just that weird line delivery you get out of him. But if Vin Diesel played like the leader of the Locust, if he played one of the Locust leaders, that could be really fucking cool.
Marcus, they would probably go after Jason Momoa, or Dom.
He would be good as a Dom. Yes, completely agree.
So I mean, I've played a little bit of the first game, and do you know how far I get in the first game? I get to the part where you're trying to escape, and then the thing is chasing you and trying to smash down the pillars. And I got so bored and frustrated with how bland the game looks, even in the Ultimate Edition.
It does get better. I've played every single one. Gears 5, I got
sluggish.
Stuck.
It's so like slow moving.
Yeah, Gears has a different feel to it when it comes to movement. That's why movement and positioning is so important in that game. It's not where you have to think tactically like Rainbow Six, but you do have to think about how long you're exposed. Are you in cover? Stuff like that.
I just get terrified that it would be a Michael Bay-esque boring CGI fest movie. So I like, if you want to do something where the vast majority of the movie is the before to build it up, like you were saying, okay, but I just feel like certain franchises don't translate to other media,
or they need longer times to breathe. Like, for example, Mass Effect, for example, that needs to be a TV series first before it ever touches the silver screen.
And limited series, you need 10 episodes per game. And
you're still going to lose stuff.
You could potentially go longer, but if you did 10 1-hour episodes, and I'm talking full 55-minute or to an hour, you could tell the whole story of each game. And probably no sweat, and you could cut out some of the filler. It would like still feel a little rushed, perhaps. It's actually probably one of the shows that could use 20 episodes per. You could do 20,
or maybe 13, and do like the Doctor Who model or something,
or 12, and like the first 6 is half the game, and the other 6 is the other half. If they're 1-hour episodes, you have a little more leeway. Certain ones will work that way. Halo is going to work because
it's before the first game.
It's a much more interesting story. Like, Gears was a tech demo that they ended up making a story about later on. Like, you know what I mean? It's not what makes Gears unique. The gameplay, not the story. So I don't know why.
The story does get good, but not until Gears 2 and 3. Like, there are like the worst received one is probably my favorite, which is
Judgment.
Judgment, yeah, because I really like Baird. But when Dom dies in number 3, that's a really heavy
spoiler for me who's never going to complete it.
Yeah, and then there's another moment where Dom finds his wife who's been captured by the Locust and tortured for years, and he has to kill her. There are some good moments in those games. The problem is it takes a long time to get to those moments.
If we're going like Microsoft owned properties, with all the success of Sonic, I'm surprised that they aren't working on trying to make a Banjo movie or TV show.
I think Conquer would have been an amazing Adult Swim show.
Yeah, I don't think they would do it now because of
no.
the image they're trying to cultivate. But like, think of other franchises that they own.
Do you remember when Viva Pinata had a TV series?
I think it was a TV series turned into a game. Yeah, like I don't think it started as a game.
I think it did start as a game, but it became a TV series. I think. I'm not 100% sure.
But other properties, like other than maybe Joanna Dark being made into a TV series or movie, and I mean, like, who would they cast? Like, you can't. Like, I have a couple ideas of who they'd cast, but they shouldn't. Like, it'd be like, let's do Charlize Theron again. It's like, no.
You need someone a little hipper,
a little younger, and not the lady that was Batwoman, because apparently she's hard to work with.
Ruby Rose, yeah.
Like, they'd have to find somebody new and upcoming, but that would work as a movie, I think, quite well. I mean, it's just Joanna. It's basically James Bond, but in the future with kick-ass
They
lady.
own Minecraft. I'm surprised that hasn't been turned into something.
How has Minecraft Stories not been a TV show?
Yeah, because I played Minecraft Dungeons for review here. I didn't much care for the world, but I thought the story was actually kind of interesting. Actually, I thought it was halfway cool.
And we're just talking about the ones that were like original Microsoft properties. Now that they've got Bethesda,
Activision. Fallout is supposedly progressing fairly well.
Yeah, I was going to say Fallout's the one that's working. That one would work because it's not just the CGI fest; it's the whole atmosphere and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Fallout will work. Diablo,
Call of Duty,
and when I say Diablo, adapt like as a mini series. Or even as a TV series, adapt the first game.
Yeah.
And if it takes 2 or 3 seasons to do the first game, like you could have if you wanted to make it like a 6-episode seasons, you could have arcs where they're going through each of the main missions of the original Diablo.
Just gave me an idea.
Imagine finishing the first season. The first season ends after he confronts the Butcher. And then each boss is basically a new season.
I do have an idea because of all the studios Microsoft owns, and you already have a built-in fan base. You already have an insanely huge, enthusiastic fan base. You do the Elder Scrolls. And
I don't know.
You called it World of Tamriel, and you just call the series Skyrim.
I don't think it would work right now because of the competition from Lord of the Rings and other shows.
That's what I mean. This would need Amazon money. You would need to make this comparable to Lord of the Rings, and the writing would have to be as strong as Game of Thrones at its height.
I think they would start with Diablo first. To be honest,
Diablo is a legacy franchise. I don't think it would be adapted live action. Animated, I could see a one-off.
Remember, the new game is still being worked on.
True, but Diablo to most young people?
Or dumb thing, like they did the Warcraft movie, a TV show might work, but I'm honestly thinking, why hasn't anybody done anything with StarCraft?
Or over... Yeah, like I think...
You know what? You know, they're talking about bringing back legacy stuff. I think that's the franchise people haven't talked about that they might want to make more games. And I don't necessarily know if they want to make more RTSs, but could you imagine if at E3, and I know we've gone off topic of what we were talking about here, but imagine at E3 if they showed off a logo and it was just, StarCraft 3 is being worked on and we're also working on a movie.
I'd be more excited for the movie than the game. Because I've had every collector's edition of StarCraft. I only played Wings of Liberty from StarCraft 2, which is the first of the new trilogy.
No, but what if it's not an RTS? That's the thing. Like, they said
if they brought back StarCraft Ghost, I'd be really into that.
What if it was their answer to Mass Effect?
I'd be down for that.
A reimagining, a retelling of the StarCraft story, like Jim Raynor's story, as done in a third-person cover shooter.
That would be cool. I would definitely be into that. I mean, other franchises they could adapt.
Or they bring back the Ghost concept that was canceled.
Yeah, that's my jam. I love Ghost. Call of Duty, if you did that, like Tour of Duty. I could see that being really successful, and that's a show that had Batman, Kevin Conroy in it, in case you folks didn't know, from the 1980s and early 90s. You could do that really, really simple, but just put a guy in there as Captain Price. You will sell subs to that.
Well,
and you tie it to the Call of Duty accounts. We're like, hey, watch every week, get a new calling card. You'll have an instant user base.
Dude, a Spyro TV show or movie.
Overwatch. You did Overwatch as an animated show, 13 episodes or whatever, 20 or 22 minutes, and you would involve characters from both sides.
Well,
you would have an amazing teen show.
You could do a single episode on every single hero
character. Yeah, like here's the Tracer, Winston,
and then they all team up for like a movie battle.
Yeah, that would be fucking cool. Fucking sign me up like yesterday for that. Like, yeah, like I'm surprised Spyro, as you mentioned, or Crash Bandicoot hasn't gotten something.
Well, that might happen. You know what? Now that they own, oh wait, Spyro is not them. Sorry, I got that wrong. Spyro is, is it? Wait a minute.
Yeah, because that's under Activision. That's Toys for Bob, right?
That's right. It's Activision, even though it was a Sony party title originally. That's right. Yeah. So you know what? They own through this enough of the old PS1 era mascots. They could make a Wreck-It Ralph style movie with all of their characters in like a metaverse of the kid stuff.
That would be really cool, actually.
Like, think of it like Crash would be sort of like Sonic, only a little more bonkers. You could have Spyro, and if you're doing that, you kind of have to get Elijah Wood to do the voice, because he did the second trilogy, I believe, of Spyro, right? So you could get some of these people back. We saw that it was actually a decent movie. Was it the Ratchet and Clank movie?
Yeah, it just wasn't well received, but the movie was good.
Yeah, it was made by Mainframe, like Rainmaker Studios. It was decently. Funny thing is, the new game has better animation because 5 years makes a difference. But like we saw that it can be successful. It just wasn't the marketing wasn't right for it. The amount of things that Microsoft owns that way, they could make a whole bunch of kids movies.
Yeah, or they could make their own Smash Brothers clone now and have it be really good. And I guess we're going to see that with what the hell's the Warner Brothers one called? WB
Speaking
Versus?
of, why did we never get a Killer Instinct movie?
Yeah, like that's a series that there's a YouTuber called Matt McMuscles, and he does a series called What Happened. And the development behind Killer Instinct is a wild ride. And I'm really hoping we see a sequel at some point, because you can get arcade perfect copies of the game on Xbox, and Arcade 1UP does have a Killer Instinct cabinet available. At next E3, they said, hey, we're working on a new KI. I'd be down for that.
We know that KI is always licensed out to other companies to develop for Microsoft. That's just sort of how it's been since they bought Rare. How crazy would it be? If this... there's all this talk of NetherRealm working on a new title, and they're like, oh, it's not it's not Injustice 3 or whatever. How fucking crazy would it be if they revealed that they were working on a Killer Instinct game for them?
I don't know whether I'd want NetherRealm to do it, because their physics have always felt weird.
Or what if
Iron Galaxy,
not full? What if they revealed they're like, it's Mortal Kombat 12, but it's Mortal Kombat. You start seeing fighting, and then he turned out it's Mortal Kombat versus Killer Instinct.
Now that'd be cool. Yeah, if you told me Fulgor, Yago, and Orchid would appear as free DLC characters or whatever on the next Mortal Kombat platform on Xbox.
Like what you see is Scorpion come out, do his get over here at the end of the trailer, and
Fulgor blocks it with his blade.
Get over here, and you hear like a cling, and then just his spear just, or his whatever it's called,
his kunai,
kunai gets knocked away, and it just zooms up, and Fulgor's face lights up.
That'd be fucking sick.
And his claws come out.
Yeah, that'd be fucking cool. I would sign up for that. And it's so amazing to think now we live in an era where Rambo, the Terminator, RoboCop, Leatherface, the Alien, Jason, Freddy, and Kratos have all fought against Shao Kahn at some point.
That's why we need Fulgor to do it. And what we need is You know, where they were like Ultra combo, Ultra, when they hit like 80, I think it's 80 hits or more.
Mm-hmm.
And they do Ultra.
Oh, and the voice changes from Shao Kahn to the Killer Instinct guy.
Well, yeah, it's like where it's like Ultra, you know. And what if it switched and it was the Toasty, but it's like Ultra. Whenever a Mortal Kombat guy does it, it's like Ed Boon's voice or whatever.
See, that'd be really clever, and that would be a nice Easter egg for fans. But obviously, we're just throwing shit out here. This is baseless speculation.
But we're saying like there's a lot of things that can happen now with Microsoft developing movies. If they if Gears of War comes out. This is a long a roundabout way of saying it. I hope it's good, and I hope it's not all brown and gray.
I want a really good war movie with good set pieces, but I want to care about the characters that are portraying Marcus and Dom. So our last story this week continues the video game train here. So chugga chugga choo choo from superherohype.com. Peacock orders a Twisted Metal series with Anthony Mackie in the league. So Captain America is now in Twisted Metal. So late September, Sony TV and PlayStation Productions set Anthony Mackie to star in a live-action Twisted Metal series based on the hit video game franchise. Now, Deadline is reporting the project has found a home at Peacock. The streaming service is going forward with the show, and Mackie remains in the leading role. The original Twisted Metal game debuted in 1995 for the first PlayStation. Within the world of the game, Twisted Metal is the name of an over-the-top car combat tournament that offers no-holds-barred destruction. Vehicles can be equipped with guns, missiles, mines, and even nuclear weapons in the quest to demolition domination. The tournament is organized by Calypso, a man who promises each contestant a single wish if they manage to win. Mackie's character, John Doe, first appeared in Twisted Metal Black as a man with no memory of his past. John joined Twisted Metal's lethal car combat in exchange for Calypso's promise to tell him who he really is. Deadpool writers Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick came up with the current take on the Twisted Metal series. However, Cobra Kai's Jonathan Smith will be the show's primary writer and showrunner. Twisted Metal is one of the PlayStation's most beloved franchises, said PlayStation Productions head Assad Quilbash, I think it is, in a statement. We are thrilled to have such an amazing creative team and partners working together who have such a passion for this iconic property. We can't wait for fans to see what we have planned for them. Okay, I mean, I don't know how. Okay, let's look at this from a money standpoint. First off, Anthony Mackie, that guy cannot be cheap now. That's Captain America, so you are paying top tier money for him now. In addition to this, okay, you're setting this in the world of Twisted Metal. Okay, fine. I hope you've got money. I hope you've got a really good fucking stunt team.
Well,
and
I mean, who's going to play
episode?
Who's going to play Mr. Grimm?
Or Sweet Tooth? Like
Sweet Tooth is going to be the hardest to cast because it has to be the one that everybody wants to see.
Yeah, and you have to make sure he's in it just enough without being like Poochie. You don't want the Poochie effect. And I think it was you said this to me like last week or something. You said you don't want to have a series where people are saying, hey, where's that new character? Boy, I sure wonder what Poochie's up to right now. You don't want that effect.
Well, this is what I don't get. Does anybody know who John Doe, like, did anybody play Twisted Metal Black?
Yeah, on the PlayStation fucking 2 or 3 or whatever it was.
Wasn't that the one that killed the franchise?
It's the franchise has been asleep for this long.
It was either Black or the one that came after. Was it the Micro Machine style one that was on the PSP?
Like
they Black killed the franchise. Nobody played it.
Not to my recollection. I remember it being a fairly common game to find at used game stores.
The ones that people liked, the Twisted Metal 2 was the most popular.
2 and 3, because 3 had Dragula from Rob Zombie in it.
But it probably didn't have the awesome exclusive version that was on Dance. It was on Big Shiny Tunes like 4 or something.
Mm-hmm.
The techno version. But it's like people really only remember 2 characters. They remember Mr. Grimm and they remember Sweet Tooth. And there's the fucking guy in the giant ball. Nobody remembers anybody else.
Yeah, like I didn't even know Twisted Metal had a story. I knew the name Calypso. I don't know why I knew it, but I know it.
Calypso, I played the first 3. So the idea is these are like people that have been damned, or I think that they're either near death or they're supernatural, and Calypso has some sort of supernatural powers where he can grant you a wish, any wish you desire.
So it's kind of like Eternal Champions, where I can grant you your heart's desire, but you must win this in order to do so.
Yeah, and they all have different purposes. Mr. Grimm is literally the Grim Reaper. He's death. And I don't know why he's there. I don't remember his story, but I played him much. Sweet Tooth, I think
he's just a crazy guy.
No, I might be wrong, but they might have to change his story a little bit, because I believe he drives an ice cream truck because he's a pedophile murderer.
I'm pretty sure you're wrong on that, but I think he's just a psychopath who hurts people.
But
I'm not sure either.
No, he played the music to lure the children. That's in the lore of the game. So
that is news to me.
It's a very edgy. It was a very, very edgelordy style of game. Like, he drives that truck because he lures children to murder. I don't know that, and there's stuff beyond that. That when you win, you find out like his wish is granted, and he like gets to basically terrorize the world again, sort of thing. Like, there's a lot of, because when you read the character bios and when you beat the game, it gives you their backstories and how they won and what they do. And some of it wouldn't fly today. It would work maybe in a mature game, but not on a television show.
So I just decided to look up the history.
Do it.
Okay, so what it says here in Twisted Metal Black, which is the continuity for this new show, Sweet Tooth had a big makeover design-wise, giving a more maniacal, homicidal appearance. His personality also changed and became much darker. His background was expanded upon, too, stating he was a wanted mass murderer that survived the electric chair to later end up at the Blackfield Asylum. It is revealed that the flames on his head were a product of a curse imposed on him by the black character Preacher, the driver of Brimstone, before execution. He is also cursed with the burden of the fires of hell upon his head, which burns him endlessly and causes him pain. He wants nothing more for it to be gone, and that's what Calypso offers him as a prize. However, in his ending, it is revealed Calypso reveals that in order to break the curse, he'd have to renounce his obsession with murdering innocents. So you are right in a sense. To which Sweet Tooth resounds by killing Calypso himself. Sweet Tooth also has an unnamed younger brother who drives Yellow Jacket alongside a dead zombified Charlie Kane. Due to the surreal setting of Black and his apparent disconnection from the mainstream games, the game's plot is considered an alternate storyline. In Twisted Metal Lost, it is said the bio of Yellow Jacket that his brother and Charlie were attempting to kill Needles themselves to end the bloodline of generations of murderers and psychopaths. So yeah, that's fucked up. Yeah, you're going to have to rework that pretty significantly, considering that's going to be on every character poster. No one gives, love Anthony Mackie, great actor. That's Captain America now. But I could see Mackie saying, hey man, this guy's a murderer. Can I not appear on the poster next to this guy?
I was going to say, the multiple games they've changed his story. I was looking it up here. I blended a bunch of them together in the lore, but it's a little dark even for now.
Yeah, like 2022. No.
Which again, but people only remember those two characters.
Yeah,
Mr. Grimm and him.
So who's asking for this though?
Nobody.
Like you said, if you did this animated, maybe you could get away with it, because the idea of Twisted Metal
or Death Race, the one with when they redid that, they remade it with
Jason Statham.
Yeah, that was successful, and then that was like one of the few Paul
Thomas Anderson?
No, Paul W.S. Anderson. I think made
W.S.
that one.
Anderson. Yeah,
the crappy Anderson. He made that, and it was good. But then they made a couple directive. Like, is this what they're going for? Do they just want to make this? Like, there's no story there. There's no. It's just a race. You want to make a one-off, fine, but a show or a movie series, it's not going to work.
Well, how would you do the stunts? Like, think about how much that's going to cost to set up.
Bad CG.
That's disappointing.
Let's be real. Mr. Grimm will work easy because it's just a pale rider on a motorcycle who, when you see his face, it's just a skeleton.
Yeah. And when you do Sweet Tooth's truck in the hero shots, that'll be a practical vehicle. But when it gets into the vehicular combat, which is the point of the show, It's
Now,
going to be, yeah, like it's going to be CG or
is it not going
ridiculous.
to? You know what it's going to be? There won't be any real flames. He'll just be a crazy murderer who wears a mask, a clown mask, and then when he dies, his head will be set on fire.
Yeah. So he'll die in like the first episode, and he's like the final boss of the series or something.
Yeah.
It's so lame. It's such a dumb idea. Like, if you wanted to do like a mini series and it was animated, sure, and just get the best voice cast you can, get the best anime voice or animation studio, and do it that way.
You'd
Sure,
be better off
that's cool.
adapting. You'd be better off adapting Vigilante 8, which was the like rival to that series, right? Because at least that was a demolition derby with guns.
Yeah, this is, I don't know. It's fucking dumb.
Like, this is not like Sony is not picking the right proper. Like, I know they're trying to do it because they want to get a like live service game based around it up and running, which is not going to work because we saw how well that worked with Destruction All Stars.
Yeah,
like if you're going to adapt a property from Sony's past that they own completely, they should do Siphon Filter. They should do something that lends itself better to a live action production. And if not that, they should be doing something like, you know what they should do?
Metal Gear. Find a way to say I'm sorry to Hideo Kojima and make it happen.
That's not them though. They don't own that. So
they could purchase the rights to the series, because I know there's been a movie in development hell for
it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen unless they buy the company outright. They're not going to lend them that at this point, probably. Now, what they should do is go into their library, and Sony should focus on children's stuff. Stop. You're doing plenty with the adult stuff with the Last of Us show and other stuff coming out. What they should do is go, hey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to create 3 television shows. We're going to sign a deal with Netflix so they can get some cartoon money out of it. And we'll make a movie for each first as a pilot. Here's a Sly Cooper show. Here's a Jack and Daxter.
Yep.
And here's Ratchet they've already got going, but here's they'll do those 2. Do Sly Cooper and then Jack and Daxter to really bring them back, and then do a medieval TV movie.
Yeah, that could be fun.
They own those, but very specifically those 2, because like we've seen nothing. Like Sly had a game on the PS4, I think, or was it PS3?
Vita,
PS3.
I think it was.
It was PS3. They had Sly 4. We haven't seen anything from Jack and Daxter since the PSP.
Yeah, it's been a long ass time. I want to say there was a Vita game. Yeah, there was a Vita game, but I think it was just a port.
Yeah,
because I had it.
I think it was a port of a PS3 title.
Yeah, I think you're
something,
right.
Or something to that. But you know what I mean? Like, they've only given love to Ratchet and Clank, and that's because the studio still wants to make it. Problem is, Naughty Dog does fuck all except for one. They do 1 series per game system, and they do 3 of those games each cycle. And same goes for who the fuck made
Guerrilla Games?
No, it wasn't Guerrilla. Sly Cooper was Sucker Punch. Sly Cooper, like they're too busy. Sucker Punch is making all the Marvel games and like Ghost of Tsushima.
You know what? If they wanted to do a live action 6 episode, but tell a story set in that universe, Infamous
would work as a full series, like a 22 episode, like regular TV show.
I don't think it would go the full 24 or whatever. The only reason I say limited, if you try and get the vibe of the first season of Heroes or like any of the Marvel shows, put a lot of money into a few episodes and make sure the quality's there.
Or instead of adapting Infamous 1 and 2, why wouldn't you just jump into Second Son? Because that has the added bonus of Indigenous affairs.
Yeah, like I think if you set a story in and around Infamous 1, 2, and Second Son, I think you could have something really powerful there. Like, I think you could really tell a good story, and that could lead to a new game. Say, hey, here's the protagonist from the TV series. Now he has his own game, and make it really, really, really good. Like, there are some great possibilities here.
What sucks is that Sucker Punch is such a good studio that everything they make is good. It takes time, but there's not enough of them around to make more than one. Like, they're making 2 games at once right now, which is insane to me. And those 2 games are obviously Spider-Man 2 and Wolverine. But like, they also make the Sly Cooper games, which I would love to see a new one, and they also made Infamous. So it's like Sony almost needs to bite the bullet and go, we're going to hire 200 more people to make another a second studio within the studio to work on an extra project.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised they haven't yet, but hey,
they're
with the
more
PlayStation doing well.
Well, they're more consistent at delivering good quality stuff than even like Naughty Dog is at this point. Naughty Dog takes a long time to make a game that half of the people loathed and hated, and then won all the awards.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I don't know about you. Are you tired of Last of Us games? And like, I'm tired of that. I am tired of their style of game.
See, I really like their style of game because it's a good blend between stealth and action, and I play them remarkably careful now. Like, I don't do the run and gun style that I used to. I approach it more like a Metal Gear Solid game.
For the talent that studio has, I'd like more than one game franchise in 12 years.
I would like to see more regular releases or tell more side stories using that same engine. Like in The Last of Us Part 2, I'd like to know what else we could do in that world, for example.
Didn't they say that they're doing a remake of the first one, which doesn't make sense? And aren't they done making? I don't think there's a third one, is there?
I don't think so. And the thing is, I don't want any more of Ellie's story for now. Her story is over. It doesn't end where she thought it would, and I think that's a very poetic ending to that character for now.
Their games, even the Uncharted is good, but it's was getting a little stale.
Yeah,
and this was,
which by the way, based upon your review, I went out and got the Lost Thieves edition, by the way, because it was like $15.
They're good. They're good games. Like they're good, but and with The Last of Us, they're really dour and like depressing games. Like they don't like. I almost feel like they need a palate cleanser, or as a studio, they're only going to get stuck making the same games. It's got to be slightly depressing making games that are that depressing. So wouldn't it be nice if their next game was a Jak and Daxter game?
Yeah, it might be nice for something a little more lighthearted.
Like if they could alternate, make a happy-go-lucky family game and then the serious award-winning adult game. Because look at that's what Sucker Punch is doing. Like Sucker Punch went like serious Tsushima, and then they went right into
Spider-Man.
No, they went right into Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah, so yeah, I totally
and then Spider-Man. And then you know what I mean, like they're alternating the styles. Other studios we don't know what Bend is working on. They're the ones that were told they were going to have to make the remake of Last of Us, and they were like, why? Your game is 4 years old. And who knows, they're apparently working on something fresh, so things are happening. Again, Sony, all these companies, they're not really understanding what properties are going to adapt well. Microsoft is crossing their fingers with Halo. I'm surprised that we haven't had more. Like Capcom's been okay with, I heard that the Castlevania anime was pretty good. But I don't know.
It would be Konami.
Konami? Was that what it was?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
However, though, I'm surprised Capcom hasn't done more with their properties, because they did have the anime for Devil May Cry. There's been multiple Street Fighter movies.
Devil May Cry would work as a series. It would be like, you could make it a little bit like Supernatural.
Yeah. Mega Man did have a series a couple years ago called Mega Man Powered Up, and it was a weird take on the universe, but it was actually really entertaining. I'm actually really surprised it got canceled. Like there's so many properties that these companies are just sitting on doing nothing with.
Why haven't we had a Breath of Fire game from Capcom in years, or TV show? That would be great for a cartoon show.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's all these things that, like you said, all these studios, especially the Japanese studios, they sit on these things and nothing gets made. And you could say the same for the American studios. We'll see where it goes. Like it's going to be an interesting couple of years. Streaming has opened up opportunities where they're desperate for content now more than ever.
I've got a Netflix series for you. I'm going to pitch it to you right here, right now. Okay. Sony property. They own it outright. The character has appeared recently within the last 10 years. And you do it in the same style as the Cuphead show. Limited series, musical numbers are a must.
Parappa the Rapper?
That's right. Imagine how well that would go over with Jammer Lammy being sprinkled in with that. So you'd have rap and rock and put it towards kids. Make the raps and the rock songs really simple so they can sing along.
What,
you would have that would
like
fucking sell.
Do a Baby Shark one? No.
Well, like just imagine how much fun, and you could bring back the original voice actors.
Parappa the Rapper, yeah, that could. Parappa the Rapper is something that they should be doing on the PS5 for free, because
like Astro's Playroom,
because the controller has built-in microphone where, or if you're using a headset and it has the gyros and all that, it should do something where you have to use your head. Actually, no, Parappa the Rapper should be a game on PSVR 2.
Jammer Lammy, I would say, because then you have to play guitar.
Well, no, but imagine you got your hands. You have to move your hands as you rap, like you're rap battling.
Okay, yeah, all right.
So you could, and think about how much fun that would be for streamers, where you have you could set it up. Your friends are filming you as you got the headset on, and you're rapping and dancing around.
Sony, we've got ideas, man. Call us.
It's an easy enough game to make. It could incorporate all of the surroundings. Like, can you imagine you're walking up to a place and somebody's like, "I want to battle you." Rap style. It's like Pokemon, and you got to battle somebody, but and how you rap is how you do damage to them. That's
a really great idea. I really love it. So we have talked enough here on the Nerd News Network this week. We're only on ThisWeekInGeek.net, and we're going to stick with Sony news because you wanted to hear more of that. But Alex got a chance to take a look at the newly released Gran Turismo 7, which should be a showcase on the PlayStation 5 platform. Is it? Does everything indeed run as smoothly as it should? Or are you going to be like a Ford Pinto and it may explode when you get hit from the rear? Well, we're going to find out right now.
It's finally here. It is my review of Gran Turismo 7, brought to us from our friends at Polyphony Digital and Sony Interactive Entertainment. A review code was provided for the purposes of this coverage. Now, this is a game that we were discussing wanting to see since we saw that reveal at, what was it, the Future of Gaming event? Was it 2 summers ago? I can't even, it's hard to even tell anymore. Yeah, I think it was the summer of 2020 when they finally revealed it. And we were all really hyped for it. And I'm going to get into this very quickly by saying, I know that there's some people that are disappointed with this, or maybe would be expecting more. Let's go over what this game is not and what this game is. What it is not is an arcade racer. Do not expect a Need for Speed style game. Don't expect a Forza Horizon style game. This is an arcade. Arcade, it is not. This is a simulation racer where they do their best to try to simulate the real world physics and down to the last little detail of every lug nut and spark plug on the engines of every single vehicle included. It is also a love letter to the history of motorsport racing, as evidenced by the 5-minute video that plays when you first start up the game the first time, where you watch the history through news clippings all the way up to modern day of what the invention of the motor car, as well as the evolution of racing up until now. Every car has super detailed histories and backstories. It is a love letter to motor racing. It is not a arcade racer, and I feel like any reviewers that went in thinking that's what this is going to be are going to be disappointed. You will be disappointed if you expect it to be an arcade racer. But what it is the most perfect, currently, not got to make that asterisk there, current racing game on the market. Now, visually, it's impressive. It's not as impressive as I thought it was going to be. You aren't getting ray traced races. It's only in replays, as well as the garage scenes where you can look at your vehicle. So I turned ray tracing off and just had it on the 60 FPS mode, because as it stands, the actual racing is 60 FPS 4K all the way through. It's buttery smooth. The load times are amazing. Audio is fantastic as far as the sound effects. Music wise, not as much. I thought there was going to be more licensed music like in previous titles. Most famously probably being Gran Turismo 3 having Turbo from Judas Priest, as well as some other people licensed songs into it. Not really getting that here. It's Japanese audio tracks from I guess semi-famous or famous Japanese artists that I've never heard of because they're not famous over here, as well as remixes with philharmonic orchestral versions of classical music that they have they're in the public domain. Which is really surprising that you figured there would be more. But the public domain music does help in a sense of if you're going to do streaming, you're not going to be hit with any flagged or copyright notices because it's like Beethoven stuff. As far as Rumble features, it has a really good implementation of the haptic feedback as well as the pressure adaptive triggers. Certain audio sounds and cues will come out of the speaker built into the controller. If you don't have your headphones plugged into it, that is. It has a really good profile setup for the 3D Pulse audio headset, which is pretty good spatial sound for it. It has a 7.1 mode that works with it will actually downsample to 5.1 for a surround set if you have that at home. And as far as the actual racing, it's basically a perfect simulation in that it's pixel perfect accurate, very low latency. The environmental weather, day-night cycle stuff looks fantastic. There's a lot of really good draw distance. I should say that this is available both PS4 and PS5. I played the PS5 version for review because this is the version that they were advertising, and this is the version that I think most people want to play. So I'm not really comparing it to the previous gen because at this point you're probably looking forward to playing it on next gen or what is vastly becoming the current gen. As far as other modes that were included, I really enjoyed the new beat mode where it plays a classical song or plays a song and you have so many beats that count down. The beats count down with the music and you have to race to the checkpoints to increase the beats on your counter. If they hit 0 or as they approach 0, time sort of slows and music slows, and then you run out of time, you'll lose the race. And then the goal is to make it to the end of the song with traveling the furthest distance, and that'll get you your different trophies. That's a fun new mode that I've not seen before in any other game, and that's actually probably what I played the most is these one-off races. As of the time of this recording, there were only 5 races of that mode. The rest is in the full simulator, which has my one downside that I want to say about this review is I really disliked the UI interface of the main game. It hasn't changed in about 20 years. I would have figured the hub world is not as intuitive or as fun as you'd think, and there's a lot of hand-holding that you can't skip. So it can take quite some time before you get to the racing portions of the game with going through the career mode aspects, showing you the garage. It was a lot of busybody work that you should have been able to skip if you're somebody who's played it before, as well as a return of getting your licenses, which can be harder than the regular races themselves and can lead to very frustrating moments. I wish there was a way to just turn that off and just continue racing. As of right now, I didn't see that. That might be some modes or something they add later on. But outside of a very disappointing UI that is woefully out of date and out of touch with what current generation of players want to play and see, everything else is pretty fantastic. We don't give, viewer, score ratings here other than saying if we recommend it or not. I would say I recommend it as long as you know that this is not a arcade racer. This is a simulation racer that is probably the most impressive in its genre.
Go crazy?
Don't mind if I do!
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria!
Welcome back to ThisWeekInGeek.net. I'm your host, Mike the Birdman. He's Alex, the producer. All right, folks, it's time to dive into the tabloid section of the interwebs and talk about the more strange and unusual things that have happened upon the big blue marble this past week that don't involve war. As me and Alex were just discussing off air, we're going to try and keep certain political stories out of our cycle, trying to have a little bit more fun until things, require our attention. We're going to try and bring a little bit of joy to the world, such as it may be at this current time. But we stand with Ukraine. That being said, let's go on. This first story, when Alex sent this to me, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? So this comes courtesy of NYDailyNews.com. Harvey Weinstein, we all remember this guy, was busted for smuggling milk duds into an LA jail, according to a report. Imprisoned sexual predator Harvey Weinstein has received a jailhouse rebuke after his latest brush with the law for possession of chocolatey contraband. A search of the imprisoned Oscar-winning producer uncovered a stash of milk duds after a meeting with his attorney in a jail medical facility in downtown Los Angeles, according to a report Thursday by Variety. Weinstein, convicted 2 years ago of rape and criminal sexual acts at his trial in New York, was awaiting prosecution on similar charges in California when the candy was discovered during a November 10th search following the sit-down. This was an innocent misunderstanding, said Weinstein in a statement to the entertainment industry publication.
Funny about anything innocent involving him.
Yeah, no. He goes on further to say, it will not happen again. I've been a model inmate following the rules and regulations, and I am sincerely sorry. Weinstein, 69, remains behind bars in Los Angeles as he awaits trial on 11 charges of rape and sexual assault, the next chapter in his precipitous fall from Hollywood grace after scores of accusers emerged from sordid accounts of his abuse. He was sentenced to 23 years in prison, to which my web browser decided to freeze at that moment.
He's going to die. He's going to die in jail, basically.
Yeah, he should not get out. I am sorry.
No, I'm saying he's 69. His health isn't good. He's not making it to 90 something in prison.
No, he might make it to 80, maybe.
He's got 5 years. Mark my words, he's got 5 or less based on his health. And, I know they say, evil people live the longest. If you look at him, he looks like a bridge troll that's slowly eroding away.
Yeah, it's just, obviously this guy did some terrible, terrible things. The fact that he's getting busted over milk duds is a little bit funny.
I do find it funny. What I was laughing at is I'm thinking, when he goes to court, it's going to be 11 charges of rape and all this, and milk dud smuggling.
Yeah, it's going to be under some contraband law. That's so dumb.
And it's entirely possible that some of his cases with the women get thrown out. Not all of them, but, depending on how much evidence they have for each case. But the one that's going to stick is the milk duds. Because they have proof. They caught him red-handed.
That's amazing. Of all the things in all the world, you get busted for that, not even a Fifth Avenue or a Mr. Goodbar. You dumb, dumb man.
You dumb, malicious, evil-intended man.
Yes, so that's terrible. So
and
fuck
let
this guy.
And let that syphilis rot him away.
Exactly. So this story comes courtesy of The Guardian. And this one, it grabbed me for such a peculiar reason, because me and Alex, you and I have lived in apartments for most of our lives, I would argue, correct?
We owned, we also rented houses. I've lived in an apartment the last 5 years, townhouse for 9 years before that. Before that, my family owned homes.
Okay, so would it be unfair to say you are familiar with noisy neighbors, thin walls, that sort of thing, right?
I can tell you stories, but yes.
Okay. So I have a feeling your stories are going to line up with this one. So courtesy of theguardian.com, the city that never sleeps, complaints about New Yorkers' noisy sex are rising. Urban dwellers tolerate screeching subways, traffic, and noisy bars, but late-night sounds of coital revelry are the breaking point. A wave of sex mayhem has apparently been sweeping New York City, prompting residents to lodge...
I'm sorry. That, if I ever had the cops come over and be like, could you keep the noise down? Why? And if I ever got a ticket for sex mayhem, I'd be like... That's like, I pin that and put it on my wall. If I'd be with my girl, be like, look we got ticketed for having sex mayhem.
On the books.
It's in the books. It's on the record. Well, have you ever been arrested before? Yeah. For what? Sex mayhem? Be like, what the fuck does that mean?
Look it up. It's real. So according to this,
it was intense. I needed a lot of iced tea.
It was death by snoo.
Basically.
So, prompting residents to lodge an increasing number of noise complaints to a government helpline. New York is no stranger to noise complaints. New Yorkers file as many as 75,000 a month, but new 311 call data obtained by Patch has revealed that many recent complaints arise from those disturbed by their neighbors' late-night ventures. From February 19th, 2021 to February 9th of this year, the website reported the official helpline received 277 complaints about noisy sex. Queens produced the most with 103. Manhattan came in second with 66, while Brooklyn produced 55, the Bronx 48, and Staten Island a 4.
I'll tell you, something in the water in Queens.
Yeah, you got something to do, man.
It's like high five to everybody there.
In Cross Bay Boulevard in Queens, 56 complaints, you're going to love this, Alex, were complaints lodged about quote-unquote hippies allegedly dressing up as Freddy Krueger, Pennywise, and the Easter Bunny while engaging in coital revelry. The theme song
So that's what they mean by sex mayhem.
Oh, it gets weirder because you are a wrestling fan, and this gets strange. The Easter Bunny, while engaging in coital revelry, as the theme song of Velveteen Dream, a pro wrestler, blasted in the background. I hope the Easter Bunny was the same one from WWE. I'm just saying.
Oh, the one that had
Adam Rose, whatever.
Party time all the time.
They're still here.
Yeah, party time for real.
Now, this is a quote from the actual complaint. They're still here causing a sex mayhem. Neighbor complained one day at 6 a.m. Thought it was too cold outside for an orgy party. Doesn't stop this guy. Another Queens resident said, for the love of God, stop these sex addicts. O to the R to the G to the Y. If you know how to spell and read that, that is orgy. In Greenwood Heights in Brooklyn, a resident said they had slept through natural disasters, but their neighbors' activities were now keeping them up. To get a sense of how disruptive they are, I've slept through earthquakes and fires in my life. I couldn't sleep through this. The resident wrote last April in a complaint lodged at 2:45 a.m. Someone else reported she makes the bed squeak as if it's an Olympic event. Another was quoted as saying, ceiling shaking and debris falling sex. Complaints obtained by the Pats also revealed that New Yorkers have been involuntarily privy to bedroom narrations aligned with current events. On December 21st of last year at 11 p.m., one seasonal example, a resident in East Harlem in Manhattan said, some guy is singing Jingle Balls at the top of his voice. Another person is screaming, yes, daddy, come down my chimney. Last spring, when the federal government distributed COVID-19 stimulus checks as part of the American Rescue Plan, one Bronx resident complained at 12:45 a.m., loud banging and moaning, and heard the neighbor saying, how's this stimmy baby? In a statement to the Patch, a New York City police spokesman said, Sophie Mason, said the NYPD took all quality of life complaints seriously. We will continue to monitor and address all these complaints, she said.
Is it just that people are home and bored during the pandemic?
Well, it's actually funny you mentioned that because I hang out on Reddit a lot. And one of the questions I saw in Ask Reddit within the last 2 weeks, someone had asked, do you have sex more or less now that you're working from home during the pandemic? And one guy says, not on company time, but yes, I am. And you're probably not wrong. Like, I would be very interested to see what the birth rates are like for the last 2 years, because I know for several years they've been in decline.
I'm willing to bet they're in decline because more.
It's too expensive to have a kid.
I don't think that condoms are in higher use. I just believe that if you read the data, you're probably going to find that women are using more contraceptive than ever.
Yeah, I mean, it's their body, their choice. Yeah, plus, having a kid is ludicrously expensive.
Well, there's the pill, and then obviously
the
IUDs,
device,
which I remember talking to my ex, not knowing what that was. I'm like, you have an IED inside of you?
I had the exact same conversation with an ex in like the early 2000s,
and I was like, you have an IED? I'm like, is it going to blow up? She's like, it's not going to blow up if you go. I'm like, to the point where I'm dying in stitches laughing and she's killing herself laughing. She's like, if you have sex with me, your dick isn't going to blow up. But I said, I didn't think that, but like, what the hell is an IUD? She's like, it stops me from having babies. I'm like,
oh
yeah. I said, yeah, bombs usually do that.
When I had this conversation with my ex, we were in the clinic after she had the device inserted, and I said IED, much like you did, and the nurse behind the counter started cackling. I'm like, what is that? Not what it's called? and she corrects me much like you did. I'm like, oh, I've been saying the other thing. She's like, you'd be surprised how often we actually hear that. So it is not an improvised explosive device.
It's a generational thing for us because we grew up hearing about IEDs all the time because of Afghanistan.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I guess I just heard it and I didn't really think about it. But yeah, I was thinking that's kind of funny. So
I it's not just us being, lame brained. This is, I'm willing to bet that is one of the most common things people mess up, especially guys.
Oh yeah, like I remember, like once upon a time, I used to get Law and Order SVU. I used to call it Law and Order SUV because I would get the two kind of letters mixed up, and whoever I was with at the time would often correct me. But sometimes in public, I'd make the mistake. I'm like, oh, not Law and Order Sports Utility Vehicle.
Yeah.
Ice-T is probably driving one in reality, but no.
My mom used to call it, she's like, are you watching regular Law and Order or Law and Order Sex Crimes? And I'm like, why? She's like, yeah, I keep forgetting the letters. That's all it is, right? It's Sex Crimes Division.
Yeah.
But still, like, yeah, it's I'm willing to bet there's probably a generational component to it as well. And to get like sort of serious for a second here, I don't believe that it's a matter of younger people being more open about sex, because you got the hippie generation, aren't like our parents' generation, like the boomers, where sex was more open, people were having it. I think what's more so is now, and it's not just a single out like guys and girls. I think that the younger generation, like the ones that are like the one generation even lower than us, it's because of streaming porn and all that. They're not only more open to having sex, they're more open to having loud, crazy, whatever, because to them it's normalized what you see in porn.
I could see that. I mean, I think most
like where like they're not trying to be quiet about having sex. Like you were always going to have people that had a lot of sex, but I feel like now
there was something
there's a performative thing to it. Like they want to be heard having
actually
sex.
It's funny you mention that
versus us, where if people heard you having sex,
you could get in trouble.
And somebody, you can get in trouble, or if it was your buddies, or if you're in a dorm, you might get the wow, you guys were loud, and it was like you were loud because oh my god, you couldn't contain yourselves. Yeah. Whereas now it's like everybody look at me and hear me.
There was something because I originally sourced this story from Internet Today, and one of the hosts, Ricky, was saying evidently there are people who are OnlyFans performers and other sex workers. They actually hire people to re-insulate their walls, especially if you live in New York City and places like that, because the walls are so thin, because they want to be nice to their neighbors. Because if they're doing a cam show, things can obviously get a little bit excitable, and they want to be respectful. And I really got to thinking about that since I sourced this story. That's a side hustle I never would have thought about. Like if you can, if you know there's a clientele.
I'm willing to bet there's more sex workers in that industry now than ever before.
Yeah, like we actually reported on this a couple of years ago because of the pandemic. OnlyFans and other platforms like that have seen an explosion of new talent come in, and it's virtually impossible for newcomers to establish themselves within the adult industry now.
In the last 20 years, when the streaming sites started coming up, you had people doing amateur porn where they were filming it themselves, but again, that's mostly quieter stuff. Like it wasn't the performative. Like there's cam girls and streamers in general, they're following the methodology of YouTube streamers, like the yelling, screaming stuff of like PewDiePie, but adapting it to sex. And because that's what that generation understands and knows as like it has to be loud, popping sounds. So when you think about that, traditionally, if you were filming something like that, it was in one of two places: California, or you were filming
New York,
or Florida. New York
or Florida.
Remember, New York
had the law. That's right.
Yeah, there was law against porn after Deep Throat in the 1970s. They were not allowed to make porn anywhere else outside of California, out of like the Santa Barbara area. So early porn in the 50s and 60s was, some of it was made in New York, some of it was made in other places, but until I would say in the last 2 to 3 years, 99% of it was in California or Florida. And Florida, even then, like certain cities wouldn't allow it, right? So with this, you're having people filming it in buildings that would have never been soundproofed to have somebody getting like comically loudly drilled. You know what I mean? For lack of a better term, you know what I mean? Like this, the animated thing you hear from porn.
Yeah, exactly.
They were not insulated or not made for that because they were never zoned for that. Whereas, you know, you'd hear loud porn and porn sets and stuff. But remember, in California, a lot of the porn was filmed in buildings that they converted specifically to make porn.
Yeah, because you would have people building sets, you would have offices on the like kind of premises, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Also,
and the Florida stuff was usually done outdoors.
Yeah.
In like private pool areas and stuff. Like it was very specific. Now anybody with a camera and a DSLR or a high-end mirrorless camera can set up themselves to do high-end camera work. You know, if you're in a building in New York, it's like 100 years old. It's paper thin walls.
Yeah, it's just the way it was. In fact, I just thought about this now because I used to cover municipal politics at one point in my life as with one of my television things. And I got to thinking, how would bylaw even go by and serve a ticket for this? I mean, I guess if you're just doing a general noise complaint, but that must be really awkward for the issuing officer. But
not
if
really.
it's New York,
it would
whatever.
be like regularly. They'd be like, you've been issued a citation because the noise levels was too high.
Yeah,
they would not go into details unless you were in an area like a school zone.
Yeah.
Like
and if you challenged it, I guess.
Like for instance, if your neighbors ran a legally like a licensed legal daycare center, and you were having loud
during business hours,
loud horror movie sex, come down my chimney, I want to be smothered in all this, whatever shit they're saying, the crazy wild out there shit, and the neighbors are hearing that, they could file enough complaints, and if you don't, what they would come at you with is, do you have a license to perform your business here?
Yeah, because there are regulations in the adult industry in cities, in counties and stuff like that. Yeah. It's stuff that isn't widely known, but if you ever do enter the field, there's a lot of questions you should be asking. There's a lot of things you need to know.
The loophole would be is if it's a solo artist only doing solo cam work. But if they're having other people performing with them, it might
then you have to sign with talent agencies, insurance policies.
There may be bylaws, so it all depends, right? So without getting farther into it, this is a wormhole they're going to have to open up with the tons of different legal things. New York's going to have to deal with it. New York makes sense. You got a lot of people in the area wanting to make money, and there's money in it. And when your apartment costs you $4,000 a month, you need to make that money somewhere.
Yeah, and not necessarily working down at Starbucks or the local pizzeria is not going to cut it. So
you can't make it.
It is what it
anymore.
is.
When people aren't going to rest, like even working at a good restaurant where you could maybe make $100 in tips a night or more.
Now that's changed.
Maybe $200. You might never be able to make those tips and gratuities, and they haven't adjusted your pay accordingly. You're still making, if minimum wage is like $12, you might only be making 10 there because it's expected you're going to make $400 a night in tips. Well, if your tips are now $50, that means you can't eat.
Yeah, it's something that will have to be addressed. And like I said, it's a funny story, but it does lead to some interesting questions.
Well,
down the road.
Coming down my chimney one.
Yeah, but that guy wanted to be heard. That guy wanted to be heard.
Well, dressing up as horror characters, it sounds to me like you're right that this is probably cam work and for
whatever.
OnlyFans.
Or something weird like that.
People, I'm not. It's not kink shaming. People dress up however they want. There's all these different things. How animated that sounds, you're not doing it for the performance of just people in the room.
Yeah, it's if that's your thing, then that's your thing. Just it's 3 a.m. I have to get up for work at 6.
Just consider your neighbors in this, because it's not like you want to hear them screaming and throwing things at each other. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's noise complaint is a noise complaint is a noise complaint. So don't think of them as coming after you because they're prudes. Think of it as no different as if you just heard a dog barking all night.
Exactly. So this next story comes courtesy of The Independent. Scientists hope to unlock secrets of a 300-year-old mermaid mummy. Bizarre-looking object may have been made for export to Europe, says researchers. Researchers in Japan have begun tests on a 300-year-old mermaid mummy to try and trace its origin. The bizarre-looking object, which may have been produced as an item for export to Europe, is believed to date from the early 1700s. It measures 30 centimeters long with a tail and hands raised to its screaming face. It is preserved in a box at a temple in Okayama Prefecture in the southern part of Japan's Honshu Island, but until now, its exact origins have remained unknown. The mummified object, which appears to have nails, teeth, and hair on its head, scales on its lower body, has been sent for a CT scan at the veterinary hospital of Kurosaki University of Science and the Arts. Japan's Asian Shinburu newspaper said the box it was found in contained a note claiming it had been caught in a fishing net in the Pacific Ocean at some point between 1736 and 1741. The dried mermaid was said to have been kept by a family and then passed to another before it was eventually acquired by a temple, which put it on display some 4 decades ago. Hiroshi Kanshida of the Okayama Folklore Society found the object while studying Kyoto Sato, a Japanese natural historian who researched mysterious creatures. He said he did not believe it to be a real mermaid, but it may have been made for export to Europe or for special events in Japan. However, until recently, detailed examination of its origins have not taken place. Now, scientists will analyze the antiseptic treatment used to preserve the mummy in such good condition, as well as carrying out a DNA study to determine what object it might have been made from. Mummified mermaids are thought to have been used as objects of worship in Japan over the period. The head priest of the temple said, "We have worshipped it, hoping it would help alleviate the coronavirus pandemic, if only even slightly. I hope the research project can leave records for future generations. The result of the report are to be published in the autumn." Half-human, half-fish creatures have long existed in folklore, with magical figures appearing in cave paintings 30,000 years ago, while the ancient Greek epic poet Homer also wrote of them in the Odyssey. However, no evidence of aquatic humanoids, as they are also known, has ever been found. According to the Royal Museums Greenwich, which manages the National Marine Maritime Museum, in some cultures the mermaid signifies life and fertility within the ocean. In others, she embodies the destructive nature of the water, luring sailors to their death, serving as omens for storms and unruly seas and disasters. I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is not a real mermaid. There are some cryptids. Yeah, there are some cryptids I'm more willing to believe, but then again, to play devil's advocate here, there's a lot of weird shit in the ocean we just don't understand.
The cryptid that I believe is the Kraken the most, because we've seen things when we went down to the Marianas Trench that could only exist in fairy
at that
tales.
Pressure depth. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and there's talk of, giant secret. Yeah, I'm willing. Like we know the megalodon existed because we have the bones and it's legit. It's just like I'm willing to bet that there are maybe a couple of these things, like these giant octopuses, left maybe 500-600 years ago. But the way that our weather systems have changed and
the way we treat the oceans,
and pollutants and the population density changes, they were probably went extinct, or they're really, 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 really far down. Like remember the anglerfish that was something out of people's nightmares. And
there was another.
And then when they found it, and they were like, remember when they found that and they tried to bring it up? The first time they tried to bring it up, it fell apart because we didn't realize it wasn't held together by regular membrane. It was held together by the pressure itself.
Yep. Do you remember it was a fish they found in the Indian Ocean in the 1930s or something like that? And they thought it had been extinct since like the Cretaceous period, and they found one alive. And they're like, what the hell is this thing? So yeah, like you find all sorts of creatures from the fossil record still alive today. Yeah. Just for this thing.
This sounds a lot like, was it chupacabras or something where in Mexico, there's certain ones.
The Mexican goat sucker, right?
Yeah. But there's other ones where they're like, here, we found the bones. And it's like, no.
It's like an emaciated coyote or something.
Do you remember when they first announced? Well, not that we were around, but you remember reading about when they first discovered dinosaurs, and the argument was that they put together the bones of 6 different dinosaurs into some giant creature without using any like anatomical information, and they said that this creature was the only one of its kind, and it roamed the earth.
Yep. I remember hearing
it turned out it was like 6 different dinosaurs, and then they filled in the rest with chicken bones.
I remember when they had the head of a brontosaurus on like a diplodocus or something like that. Like they had like the heads mixed up or something.
Tyrannosaurus had on a brontosaurus neck,
or something weird.
And
like
it was
that.
like, and then they put like wings from a pterodactyl on it. It's like, that wouldn't work.
It's like, no, there's no biological reason for this to have existed. But yeah, I mean, something like that, that's pretty unique. I mean, one of the things I'm willing to take a look at would be the Yeti. I don't say the Sasquatch because that's a North American thing. And for it to remain undiscovered with such ground-breaking technology such as night vision, trail cameras, thermographic.
Not in this part of the world.
Yeah, not in this part of the world.
A Yeti, do
in
I
Europe?
think it exists anymore? No. Do I think that some sort of snow ape existed? Yeah.
There was something I saw. It was on a YouTube video, and I can't remember. It may have been Nuke's top 5 or something. There was something. It was taken from a Russian dash cam, because over there they have a big thing with dash cams. But they were driving in the countryside, and I guess they were going home. Something ran across the road in a really unusual stride. And I got to thinking, there's something a little bit weird about this. I don't know. Then there's another very famous story of a group of explorers who got lost, and then they were found murdered like the next day, and they don't know what tore them apart.
Well, lots of things happen in Siberia that have like, because of how inhospitable it is, and also without talking too much about Russia, they have not done as much surveying and cataloging of their country as you'd think.
Yeah, which kind of surprises me, because I'd be very curious to know what lives out in the Siberian wilderness. I mean, I've seen National Geographic docs.
Between America and Canada, we've basically jointly worked together to map 90% of our country. Like there's really thick brush area that there could be some things. The amount of aerial shots we have now, though, and research that we've done way up into the middle of nowhere here.
Yeah, like that's what I'm saying, with like thermo and drones.
But you think the Russians have done the same. They have not.
Just around their like big kind of military bases.
and we have satellite imagery up there, but we don't they haven't done extensive drone surveys like we have in the last 20 years across of all of our lands.
Yeah, because over here we're always looking for the next area to put power lines or telecommunications equipment.
For them, the biggest concern is getting their oil, and if it's not an area that has oil or natural gas, they don't bother cataloging it, especially if it's cold.
which I guess in some ways Russia may have an advantage in nature preservation. Maybe I don't know. I'm speculating here purely.
It's very similar to like the very like the Northwest Territories, like the really rural areas. That's like 90% of Russia.
Yeah, so
there
maybe there's something there.
There's friggin' gulags and old prison camps that they probably don't even remember they had anymore because they abandoned them 50, 60 years ago. So what we're going to find, if you ever go into, if they ever really did a survey of Russia, they'll find all these weird, like, they'll find like cabins and stone buildings and survey camps that were abandoned in the 30s and 40s, and they probably forgot even existed.
Yeah, it's going to be weird to see what is out there. Now, I'm trying to bring up Alex's story here, and unfortunately it's not coming up on my site, but I do remember hearing about this. So this story happened in Colorado, I want to say. Someone had stolen a truck in a rural neighborhood, and what they didn't know was excuse me, was in this truck was human heads. And as far as I understand, these human heads were medical research donated heads. And where I heard this story, once again referring to Internet Today, because their news stories are chef's kiss exceptional, they actually asked a rather interesting question.
I will send you a new copy of the story.
Okay, yep, just post it into Facebook, please.
Uno momento, because this is one you don't want to miss.
Yeah, because when I read about this, I actually got to thinking about how medical donations work. How regulated is that industry, particularly within the United States? Because I remember there was a story a couple of years ago on John Oliver, how they were talking about medical examiners and coroners, and how you don't need to be licensed in most counties down there. So this Alex is sending this to me from CBSNews.com. A box containing human heads was stolen from a parked freight company truck in Denver, officials said Saturday. The box was being transported for medical research purposes, and Denver police are investigating the incident. Someone broke into the truck Thursday morning while it was parked in a Denver Central Park neighborhood on Thursday morning, CBS Denver reported. The blue and white box was marked with a label that said exempt human specimen, police said. A dolly was also stolen from the truck. Pretty shocking, one local resident told KDR VR TV. I guess I don't see too many strange things happening around here usually, but you never know. The incident comes just days after the Denver Police Department warned on Facebook that vehicle-related crimes such as auto theft and theft from motor vehicles will continue to be a problem in Denver. No arrests have been made as of Saturday. Investigators are asking anyone who finds the box to call Metro Denver Crime Stoppers at 720-913-7867 or 913-STOP. Wow.
It's going to end up in a landfill. Like, you can't sell human heads.
Although, dark side of this, can you imagine if you put a human head for a porch pirate?
No.
You know how some people put cat poop?
I was going far worse than that. You're not going to find it because somebody who wants that head wants
going to do something.
Head. It's a Dahmer situation.
That's disturbing, and it sucks because
they'll find it in some guy's freezer in 40 years.
I hope someone who has this box of donated medical research, because, and let's be real, these used to be people. Do the right thing, call the police, say it is here. That's all you need to know.
Hey,
like,
what's the weirdest thing that happened to you this week? Well, I got arrested for stealing a whole bunch of human heads. It'd be like, what do you're prison? What are you in for? I had a box of human heads, and then every single person at lunch in the prison takes 2 steps to the left and sits down farther away from him. They're all like,
do you remember this movie came out in the 90s? And I think it was set in Denver, of all places. I think it was called 7 Heads in a Duffel Bag.
Oh,
do you remember this?
7 Heads or 8 Heads? Yeah, it was was that not a Joe Pesci movie?
Joe Pesci and John Cusack or something. It was a really odd casting. But I remember the heads sitting in the back of a truck singing at one point.
Oh my God, you're bringing back flashbacks. I have to track that down because that came out around the same time. Didn't he do like a private investigator musical movie too?
Yeah, like it was something really strange.
Right in that period, right before he retired after making was it like Lethal? He made Lethal Weapon 4 and was it Gone Fishing or something, and then retired for 20 years.
Yeah, because I think I was in high school when this movie came out. So before 2001, but no earlier than 93.
It has to be like a 94 to 96 movie.
Something like that, yeah. Because I remember something Heads in a Duffel Bag was a movie poster title or something. But I remember the scene in the back of the truck, they start singing. But yeah, that is really like, when you go to steal a vehicle or anything, obviously it's like Forrest Gump said, you never know what you're going to get. This would be the worst box of chocolates to ever open.
8 Heads in a Duffel Bag, 1997.
Okay, so, but yeah, like it
was
horrifying.
Joe Pesci, David Spade, Christy Swanson, George Hamilton.
Wow.
Diane Cannon. Like, oh my God, I forgot all these people in it. Yeah, 8 Heads in a Duffel Bag. That was one of those ones that I don't remember it going to theaters. I remember just being on video, even though it was a theatrical movie.
That's how I got it. I think I rented it with like a girlfriend at the time.
Because it was that. He did that. And was it Gone Fishing?
Gone Fishing, I think it was 98. So I think I saw that. That was with Danny Glover, right?
Yeah.
Saw that in theaters because I had nothing better to do that Saturday.
The Public Eye. That's the movie I was thinking of, where he's a private investigator. But yes, anyway, now that with the Pesci talk is over, but yes, 8 heads in a duffel bag.
I mean, like, I'm honestly, it would not surprise me if, let's say, the person who found these was tech savvy, let's say. Someone has posted about this on the dark web, most assuredly by now, or some 4chaner or something. But that would be a horrifying discovery. I mean, obviously, I've been in hospitals. I've seen some very interesting things, but I do not know how I would react to seeing a severed human head. I mean, to get real for a moment here.
Several heads.
I've only been around death a remarkable few times in my life, and I've been very, very, very fortunate for that. And when my friend AJ's mom died, I got invited to the funeral, and I couldn't be in the room with the body. I went in there, paid my respects, and then I said, AJ, I got to go sit out in the lobby. I don't know why I'm freaking out, but I am, and I couldn't deal with it. And that's the only time I've ever been that uncomfortable around death, because when my friend Quincy's mom passed away when we were in high school, I went to her funeral, and I guess I was okay with it, but I was only like maybe 15. But when AJ's mom passed away, I was in my mid-20s, maybe even my late 20s.
It depends on the connection to the person, how long you've had with them. But like when my grandpa went, it was like that. I didn't want to be in the room because it was also, it was the bullshit Catholic open casket thing. And that is not cool. Not when when you know somebody your whole life and then you see them in the box like that. It's different if they're cremated or if it's a closed casket. And maybe to finish off this on a funny note, can I tell a funny funeral story?
Yes, please do. Please do.
I'll tell 2. One, we almost dropped Grandpa.
I should tell you our story, how we did drop Grandpa.
Well,
but you go first.
My grandfather was 6'4". He was a heavy set man, and also it was a bit hypocritical because they never really went to church, but they decided to have this big Catholic funeral and had this like heavy solid oak coffin casket, whatever. And they needed like 6 of us to lift it, and I'm one of the strongest people in the family. And he died. Technically, he would have died on Christmas, but they kept him alive till Boxing Day. And so 3 days after that, we're doing the funeral, and we're carrying him to the funeral plot where they're going to lower him in. And we slipped and dropped him on the ground, and he almost slid, coffin and all, into heavy traffic down the hill. And we had to pick him up, put him back. And you tell yours, and then I'll finish off with my other funny one.
Okay, so my Blair's grandfather died a couple years ago, and his widow Leona was a firecracker of a woman, very opinionated, very funny, and she was a strange duck, I'll say. So we're taking Grandpa to his final resting place, which is in a little town called Shelburne, like blink and you'll miss it, small town, Ontario. Literally only a main street and a couple of side streets. So anyway, they go to the funeral, and they have this giant casket for this little guy, and they're pulling him out, and the body doesn't fall out of the casket, but the casket hits the ground with this huge thump. And Dad and his brother Graham start killing themselves laughing. And Leona, their mother, is like, David, Graham, what's wrong? What's so funny? And they're like, nothing, Grandma. So the joke in the family for years was like, don't ever tell Leona that Grandpa fell out of the hearse while being loaded at the cemetery. And she went to her grave a couple years ago, never knowing that Grandpa Jack fell out of the hearse.
We dropped Grandpa Richie, and he was 2 inches away from sliding down an ice hill into main traffic in Toronto.
Can you imagine? That would have been stuff of legend.
The coffin would have been smashed to smithereens, and we would have been on City TV News. It was that bad.
But would you have gotten a check for calling in your own news tip?
Well, what, from JoJo, maybe? Is he still working there?
Can you imagine if you called it? Yeah, a body just fell out of a casket and ran.
That's the kind of thing JoJo would have gone and interviewed for.
Can you imagine? Could you imagine?
But yeah, the other funny one is the mother of a teacher of mine in school passed away when I was in high school, and this was probably the best teacher at our school. Actually, we have empirical evidence she was the best because she got an award 2 years in a row for being the best high school teacher in Canada.
That's exceptional.
Voted on by students, peers, and administration.
Ooh.
Like Canada-wide, the best twice. So yes, best teacher, invited us to go to barbecues and pool parties at her house, which not creepy. It was only for the good students that we at the end of the year. It wasn't some creepy teacher. Now I don't think she'd be able to do it.
Oh, you couldn't do it now. Absolutely not.
This was like, early 2000s where she could still get away with that. Best students that were good, and not like playing favorites, but it was playing favorites. We weren't supposed to tell anybody else, but our families all knew. Like 5 kids would get invited over for a barbecue at the end of the year, sort of thing. And so her mother passed, and anybody that wanted to go pay their respects could. Because she was so well liked, they even let some kids go on their lunch breaks, like from the school. So I went, with a friend, we dressed accordingly, business casually, because we couldn't wear suits to school during the service or anything. And we stopped at 7-Eleven on the way in because we were like, oh man, we're so hungry and thirsty. So we ate our snacks, went in, paid our respects, and she had a big grin on her face. She was happy that we were there at least. And like she was smiling, like kind of funny smiling, like she was trying not to laugh. And I was like, oh, it's kind of, it's probably nerves and everything because her mother's gone. And we leave. And my buddy turns to me and he goes, what the hell's that? And I'm like, what? And he reaches, and under the collar of my shirt, I had a full-size nacho with cheese from 7-Eleven that I had somehow dropped onto my shoulder.
Oh my God, Alex.
And it was out in the open, nachos, cheese, and salsa. And I had gone to the wake in front of all these people that were sad and crying. And I was walking around with a full-sized 7-Eleven nacho with cheese and salsa on me.
I don't even know what to say to that.
We went to school when she was back the next day. She took me aside and said, I'm so happy. She thought I did it to cheer her up.
Aww.
And she goes, I thought, and I said, oh my God, I was mortified. I told her the whole story, and she had to leave the room because she was laughing so hard. Because she was laughing so hard because she thought I did it to be the smart aleck kid, like, hey, maybe this will cheer him up. No, she was laughing so hard because of how embarrassed I was at her mother's funeral. And she goes, Alex, you know what? You took a sad time. I have a funny story now to this. So she was happy with that. And the only other thing I could think of story-wise, funny, that can deal with this sort of morbidity issue is when my other grandfather died. I was 10 years old. This is in the late 90s. He was cremated. So, I didn't have to really see him or anything. It was still took a bit to get in. It was basically a picture of him next to his box. Well, fast forward to 2017 when my Oma is having problems. The early signs of dementia were starting to set in. We got her to move to Kitchener because we couldn't, take care of her in Scarborough when she's by herself in her house. And when she moved here, a few months go by, I'm over visiting her, and my mom comes back from her job, and Oma looks really distressed. She comes in the room and point blank stares and goes, I think I lost your father, to my mom. And she's like, what? She's like, I don't know where he is. She had kept the urn and everything. She goes, I think I lost your father in the move. I think maybe the moving people have him. And this is like 4 months after moving. She goes, I lost your father. And she's like, looks panicked. And then she found him in a box with some tools and tape and stuff in the basement. Like 3 months later. She comes upstairs. I found your father. He was in the junk box. So even in death, Opa made it funny.
I love it.
So yeah, those are my stories. And you know what? You have to laugh at these sorts of things. And we tried to end it on a funny note because stealing a bunch of heads is it's funny, but oh my God.
Yeah, it's a little bit strange. So we have talked about sex crimes to sex complaints to mermaids to stealing heads in a box. So we're going to finish things on an action-packed note. We're going to go back to feudal Japan, and we're going to be taking a look at Dynasty Warriors 9 Empires from Koei Tecmo. Alex did this review. We will be back, guys, right after this, only on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
Just a quick review here of Dynasty Warriors 9 Empires, brought to us by our friends at Koei Tecmo. A review code was provided. Now, this is not, I think, mine or yours or most of our listeners' first rodeo when it comes to Warriors games. And this is pretty much the big one. This is the one where they always include all the extra bells and whistles and features. And what's interesting here, though, is I believe this is the first time I've received a review code from Koei Tecmo for a Dynasty Warriors title that has both the PS4 and PS5 version available as like a, dual entitlement with it. So I played a little bit of the PS4 version on my PS5 before jumping into the PS5 native version. Main difference being slightly maybe higher consistent resolution. Frame rate was a teensy bit more stable, I think, in the PS5 version, as well as the load times were a little faster, but nothing so like painstakingly massively different looking, but just that one step up on PS5. So if you're still with the PS4, you're not missing out on too much. Now what's interesting here is they've gone and put in like a full, and it might have been available in previous editions, but I personally don't remember it, so it might have been a little bit since I played one of their titles. But there's a politics system, which I found interesting. That's almost like hybriding in a little bit of like Romance of the Three Kingdoms, that sort of tactical, strategic politics, mixed into what you're going to do when it comes to battle. So it's not just like going mission to mission to mission to mission. You're also trying to kind of conquer areas and forge your kingdom and raise your troops, and it'll change various factors about how ready you are to go into each of the main missions. And I found that kind of fun. It might be a little daunting and tedious to introduce like a young little kid into doing that if they don't want to, if they just want to go in and chop people up. But you can get around that. Now there are a whole bunch of other features in here, but I'm sort of focusing right now with that mode in particular, because I found that it was what gave it sort of a fresh take instead of just your standard going through and here's the next mission, slash up the same people, here's the next mission. You had to think tactically to raise your army's morale, troops, and influence across the land. Graphic wise, it is probably one of the better looking Dynasty Warriors games, and I mean, obviously playing it on PS5. But I do want to say that I kind of preferred the graphics that we saw in the last Samurai Warriors from Koei here, in that I preferred where that direction that they went, which was more of a cel-shaded different look. I feel it lends to that style of gameplay a little better. Now it's not completely apples to oranges, this comparison, in that obviously they're both Warriors games. Just they go through different historical and cultural geographical locations. One being more Japan, one being more China, and just aesthetically previously they looked very similar. Now they kind of diverged. I thought they were going to go with that style for Dynasty Warriors 9, but they didn't. They went with the previous art style. So if I had any critique here, outside of I think they're hitting their limit of how much they can do with this game without having to make some drastic changes before people will start to get bored. They've added enough here to keep me playing, but I think if we go into Dynasty Warriors 10, 11, 12, it's going to get to the point where people are going to get very, 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 very bored playing the same thing over and over and over again. And I think with some of these features, with the politics system, and edit mode, and a few others, they're making some steps in the right direction. Visually, I hope they move again to that cel-shaded look for the next game. But in terms of audio performance, controls are great. Audio sounds fine. It's buttery smooth when it comes to feeling like you're actually making the characters do what they do. There's no floatiness. There's no, it's not too heavy. They have the controls and everything down pat. I don't think this is going to pull in a whole bunch of new fans. I think this is for the hardcore. This is for the dedicated Warriors fans. But as a new player, you could jump into this. Just, again, might not be for the little kids because there's a fair amount of reading and tactics involved with some of the modes.
Turn on that radio and back here. The cops ain't likely to catch up with us, not tonight. So we can all be quiet and peaceable and listen to the music.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for listening to ThisWeekInGeek.net, only on ThisWeekInGeek.net. Well, I did mention last week, we did have a Halo contest running from our friends at Microsoft Canada. Winners have all been notified. Thank you to everybody who entered. And if you are a member of the Halo subreddit, you've got a surprise coming for you. In fact, by the time this episode goes up, these codes have already been claimed. So, in all likelihood, to be honest with you. So yeah, big thanks to that.
Spreading the love to a little bit beyond our regular community.
Exactly. I want to give thanks to these guys for welcoming me in, having a fantastic time with the photo mode or the Xbox capture thing, which hopefully will get better. And I've met some pretty interesting and fun people there. And it's always nice to interact with people on Reddit and have it be a fun experience as opposed to something negative or fucked up. So yeah, I'm going to be distributing those codes a little bit later on. So big thanks to those guys who are inspiring me. Coming up on the show this week, me and Alex are potentially maybe taking the week of March break off. We may have a Turd or Treasure that week, maybe something else that's pre-recorded. We are doing.
We really have to get back to recording with Aaron once your school's done.
But I'm coming into my last couple of assignments now. Although I could be convinced to talk about Star Trek Lower Decks. I did finish that over my holiday break. I saw the first episode of Picard. Can't say anything because you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, don't say that yet. What you need to do is you need to finish Prodigy. Or did you?
Yeah, I haven't. I've watched the episode where they brought all the side characters, but I haven't watched it from the beginning. So maybe I'll do that in like a weekend.
I think you'll probably binge it in one night because of how good it is.
Yeah. So we'll talk with Aaron and get that rolling because I miss that kid. He also went to this awesome restaurant with Darlene on the weekend where they play 50s and 60s monster movies.
Yeah, that looked really neat.
Yeah. And one of the movies they played was featured on the podcast Earth versus Soup. So he was really excited for that. So we'll talk about that soon. Plus we should do our season 3 picks for Star Trek, The Next Generation, TNG. So I'll pitch those projects. We'll get those rolling before the end of the month.
Yeah. What I'm going to do is a little meta talk. I'm going to make a Word document and write down all of the things that we're looking forward to doing, and then have like some tentative dates. And if anybody has any objections, let us know, because then what I can do to help us is I can make a shared, calendar reminders for all of us, because as we know, life gets busy and complicated, and it's not like this where it's like, hey, regularly we record on Sundays.
Yeah. Although some exciting news that me and Alice confirmed over the weekend, we have our Halloween special already in motion. We are inviting James Rolfe back on the show. We're going to record with him during the summertime.
Is that round 8 with him now, or round 9?
Round 9 easily. Actually, we might even be round 10 by now. I'm not sure. But yeah, we are going to be doing another Halloween special with James, and we're going to be talking about the movies of Stephen King, which is going to be fun. And I know me and Alex had talked about doing something about John Carpenter, so maybe we'll do that as our Halloween loose cannon special like we did this year with David Cronenberg.
That's something, that might be fun to look at a few features with Aaron on that. And I think we'll skip the ones we've already, we might have already talked about. Have we talked about any of those with him? I think he's seen The Thing. I don't remember if he said he liked it or not.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, like we're going to have an interesting year in terms of content now, especially now that we've brought back the quarterly topic shows and you saw how much fun we had putting that together. So whether it be a video game, movie, book, or TV series, we'll definitely talk about it with in depth. We'll try and get people involved from the production or IP in some capacity. Talk about some of the merchandise or side stuff, because it's always cool to talk about things that you can actually own or have in your house. Like speaking of Gears of War, at one time, Triforce Replicas sent me a Lancer, which my father-in-law broke trying to cock a resin gun. I was so pissed at him. I'm like, Dave, you just broke a $1,400 prop replica. Now, to be fair, it was free, but you broke it, really? But yeah, so we're going to have some fun doing some things this year, because we've been around, like I said, since 2007. No signs of stopping anytime soon, providing like catastrophic disaster happens. But
knock on wood, World War III.
Yeah, knock on wood, World War III. And as I said last week at the end of the show, if you can reach out in your local communities to find whatever ways you can help support the Ukrainian people, I highly recommend. There are a number of charitable organizations you can do. There are rallies you can join.
We didn't mention it in the news, but one thing that you might want to look into is Airbnb.
Yes.
People, you see, if for anybody that doesn't know, some people, it was actually started, I think here, somebody did it first, and then in the States has become big. People were looking up Ukrainian, especially in Kiev, Airbnb listings that they had no intention of actually visiting for, but that the money would go direct to the people instead of like if they didn't want to donate to the Red Cross or something where there's big administration fees and people could use the money right away. They were booking nights and then paying and like giving extra tips and that. And people were like, oh, sorry, the room's not available because we're at war. And they're like, no, I don't plan on staying. It's so you can get your money now so you can get the things you need. Yeah. And that was all over the news here. I don't know how much of it's been discussed in the States, but it was all over like CBC and CTV and all the national news sites.
Yeah, and I think Airbnb waived all their fees to make sure
Airbnb
more money
saw it, and obviously they saw an opportunity. They waived every fee for anybody booking a Ukrainian thing, and they've started a site, part of their website where you can directly donate, and they're matching a certain amount of donations.
Yeah, I think even Ryan Reynolds got involved. I think Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis are donating.
Yeah, because it was one of the few things out there where you could pay people direct and not have to worry about going through an agency.
I think it was Blair mentioned this to me. Mila Kunis is Ukrainian, and she has this huge thing where she wants to do something to help out her home country.
Yeah, she is.
Awesome.
She's a Ukrainian immigrant. It's like she came when she was very young, I believe. But yeah, she's like direct Ukraine.
Yeah, so if you folks can donate to help out these,
and
the times are trying.
And please don't demonize the Russian people.
No,
the actions of a crazed dictator and their military is different than like the millions of people that in themselves are protesting this. So don't demonize them. Just try to support with humanitarian aid as best you can, if you can.
Yeah, and that and one of the other things I've seen is patronize Ukrainian businesses. If you see somebody at a Russian-owned business maybe having a hard time, don't be afraid to say, hey, man, are you okay?
I was going to say, which is true. I did see a news report saying that that Russian, like people of Russian descent that own their businesses here are afraid of reprisal for something they have no control over.
Yeah, exactly.
So you use your brain. Don't be bigoted.
Be kind.
Be kind and just try to do your best. Hopefully this ends soon.
Yeah, exactly. We're all hoping and praying for the best resolution possible for everybody, so nobody really hurts more than they need to. So ultimately, folks, do more good than harm. That's what we want. So coming up on the site this week, we are recording a new Stargate SG-1 to deal with the after effects of going to that moon and the new Gual system lord Charmunda, and we'll be dealing with the aftermath of the death of Oringo. And then I just got this the other day. A fan has very generously sent me a copy of the Renegade Studios Power Rangers, the RPG. And I understand I might be a player in this.
Maybe.
Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to it. Not being the forever DM. So that'll be really, really, really cool. I've taken a very quick glance at the book. Not gonna lie, I'm looking at the Pink Ranger.
Did you get it? So did you get the physical or digital?
I just got the digital. A fan sent me a link and got one.
I have been debating purchasing the physical. It's just
same here.
I think I'm gonna have to read it a little bit first, and if it becomes a regular thing that I want to play, it's that and the Transformers one where I'm like, hello. The GI Joe one is like, well, if I've got the other two, I may as well. That's the sort of mentality, right? But like, I think the Power Rangers one has the most potential.
Yeah, like, and they're constantly supporting it. I know it was played not too recently at Renegade Con, so now that it's out there and people can read it, hopefully it'll be really, really, really successful. I haven't read the rules. I've only really read a lot of the fluff. But if I had to lean towards a Ranger color right now, I'd probably be a Sniper, which is pink, or I might go for green, which is the loner energy. But as your special bonus, they incorporate that into it. You get armor and a weapon to start. So if I don't want to rip off Tommy, what could I create? So this gives me a lot of interesting ideas. Now, the default setting is Angel Grove, but it's Alex's world. He can do whatever he wants. Highly recommend you read Shattered Grid to give yourself some ideas.
I'm going to read a little bit. I'll give you a little hint of an idea I have brewing.
Okay.
Just a teensy tiny hint. What would happen if Alpha 5 got a morpher?
Interesting. Because there have been robotic rangers before, I think, with Robo Knight, but I don't know whether he was a ranger. I don't know. Either way, I like your idea. Develop it. So we will be doing that.
It could be worse. If we want to go all in and I have to do voices, I could do the whole thing as Ninjor. Good Lord, that would get grading for 4 hours.
But yeah, like, it should be an exciting time to join us here on the show. We're looking at all sorts of different games for our actual play podcast. We're going to definitely record a couple things, maybe take a break during the summer, then come back during the fall. But a lot of good stuff coming up. We've probably got another 10 episodes left of Stargate before we're done for this season. And then that gives Alex time to develop his Power Rangers game. And then we'll see wherever that goes, wherever the adventure takes us, the road not taken. So a lot of good stuff. Like I said, we are going to talk with Aaron, get some stuff rolling rather soon. I'm just wrapping up one of my more intensive courses before I start a really deep literature course in May.
How many more do you have to go before you get your certificate?
I can, in theory, graduate in 4 more courses, but I'm taking 6.
Okay.
Because I'm taking a course on writing children's novels and literature, which I already have a book title.
Basically, you got to keep telling yourself less fucks.
Yep.
Less fuck words in your stuff, because you have a lot of kids' ideas. They just tend to have too many F words and hells and shit bombs and stuff in it.
Well, I think you'll like this idea that I'm developing right now for a children's story. It's Indigenous based, but it would be called Wiley and Wagoosh.
Oh, boy.
And it's about a kitten who befriends a fox and they become best friends.
Of course. Is that why you found all the millions of fox pictures?
Well, no, that's sort of my spirit animal, I feel, reaching out to me recently in the last couple months. But the title of Wiley and Wagoosh came to me because my wife got me a stuffed fox from... it's like this really expensive company, but she got it at a stupid good deal at Chapters. And she also got me a book for Valentine's Day called Some Days I Think I Feel Like a Fox. And I got the idea when Wiley was cuddled up next to my stuffed fox. And I got to thinking, well, what would a fox kit and a kitten be like? Because I've seen videos on Instagram where there are foxes and cats living together and they're playing and sleeping together and being a family. And I got to thinking, well, what if I expanded that into something, like a simple 10, 15 page children's story?
You could base it off of his personality plus the sly, sneaky nature of a fox.
Exactly. Like I figure, just have some fun with it. And I could even draw upon some real world locations where I grew up. So
it just can't end with an alien tearing their heads off or something like most of your stories do.
Yeah, no, there will be no alien xenomorphs or proton packs or potentially the appearance of the Green Power Ranger. This I can promise you due to IP rights.
It's going to be your version of like an indigenous Fox and the Hound from the sounds of it.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. I think it would be an interesting story to teach about cooperation and friendship. So I'm going to develop the story further and we'll see. Speaking of things that we'll see, me and Alex find out in the next few weeks if we got the Ontario Arts Grant for our Indigenous podcast. So we'll know in just a few weeks whether we got it. And if we do, there will be a celebration and we'll go with that.
And if not, it doesn't mean that project just goes away. It just might mean that if you do something, it might be a single special here or there, or, on maybe a specific event.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't be a regular show.
Exactly. So we will be working on that as time goes forward. So we'll wait and see.
I think it's too good of an idea to, completely abandon if we couldn't get funding for it. I still think specials could be made with it. It just means we wouldn't be able to devote a ton of resources to it as much as we would like to.
Exactly. So it may become similar to like the quarterly topic show sort of thing where I can put some real time into it.
Fingers crossed, government.
Yeah. Come on, boys.
Think about it. You got some podcasters here that with a unique opportunity.
Yeah. So anyway, folks, once again, so I will be distributing those Halo codes. Thank you to everybody that entered. You guys made this certainly a fantastic experience fighting the Banished on Zeta Halo. Thank you, Microsoft Canada. And thank you to 343, Halo, Paramount, Jazzwares, and any other company who's offered support, which we also just recently got Dark Horse to talk with us. So we'll be talking about some other products from them in the future. So until next time, for ThisWeekInGeek.net, we have been
Alex, the producer.
I've been Mike, the Birdman, saying, I stand with Ukraine, but most importantly, be excellent to each other. We'll catch you guys again next time, right here on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at ThisWeekInGeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.